Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Samuel was about to go home when the phone rang. "Hey, workaholic. Hey, buddy." Samuel answered, hearing the mocking voice of Harry, his old buddy. "The work week is over, so I suggest we go to a nightclub tonight because we haven't seen each other in a while. We could chat, look at some pretty girls. I don't know." "In doubt," answered the man. "I had plans with my wife. You know I don't like going to nightclubs. I'm fine at home with my wife." "Oh, come on. Monica is your woman, a woman with understanding. She knows that a man sometimes needs to relax, especially." He paused, intriguing his friend. "I've got a card for a private, all-male club." "We'll agree. Let's remember our youth. Why are you hiding behind your wife like an old grandfather?" "All right," Samuel gave in. "I'll talk to her now. If she doesn't mind, let's go. I'm waiting for your call." Harry got excited. "It's no fun to go alone. I promise it'll be fun." Samuel shut down the computer, cleared the papers off the desk, and locked them in the safe. He liked things to be in order. The plastic surgery clinic that he and his wife had opened 2 years ago was already famous far beyond the borders of their hometown for the clear, well-coordinated work of the management and medical staff. Samuel closed the office and looked in on his wife. "Darling, are you ready?" The blonde, pretty woman looked up at him. There was adoration in her gaze. "Yes, Samuel, just a minute. I'll wait for you in the car." He paused, admiring his wife. They had been together for 10 years, and Monica, in her early 30s, still had her girlish freshness. It seemed to Samuel that over the years she was only getting more beautiful, like a flower bud that slowly blooms in the sun, making him marvel at every petal that opens. If it keeps going like this. Sitting down after a while, next to her husband in the car, Monica said, "You and I will have to spend the night at work." "Why is that?" "I can't even believe that in such a short period of time we've made a steady income." "We dreamed of it." Kissing his wife, Samuel remarked, "And everything worked out. We can afford any whim." "But why do we need so much money?" Monica got sad. "We even recently do not go anywhere, just work and work. We used to dream of traveling the world. Remember, in the last year of school you promised that we would hang a map on the wall in our house, and we would mark the places we had been to. Well, the map is hanging, but we haven't gotten any more flags. We will still have time to travel. We have our whole life ahead of us. We can't give up and stop the process. People depend on us. Remember what we had to go through to earn a reputation among our colleagues. Have you seen how many positive reviews we have on our website? And there will be even more. We don't just do plastic surgery. We save some patients from doing crazy things. Remember, a woman wanted to commit suicide because of the scars on her face after a car accident that killed her entire family. Or recently, a woman came in asking to have her nose reshaped. She couldn't get married. And now she sends you congratulations every holiday. And we have many such stories. We bring joy to people. Don't you think that's worth living and working for? Yeah, live and work to save other people's lives. But who's gonna save mine? I can't give you a child. There's nothing I can do about it. They say good things come back. But somehow that didn't work for me. Don't start." Taking his wife by the hand, the man said conciliatingly, "You are beautiful, successful, but it happens in life that people cannot have children. Are we medics not to know about it? If it hadn't been for that damned operation when we were kids, things might have turned out differently." The woman had tears in her eyes. "Why am I so unhappy?" "Stop thinking about her." Samuel took his wife by the shoulders, gently turned her toward him, and looked into her dark blue eyes. thinking to himself, our daughter could have exactly the same extraordinary color eyes. Still, nothing can be changed. We have each other. I love you. You love me after all. You can always take a child from an orphanage or pay for the services of a surrogate mother. There are so many options today. We haven't used any of them. Yes, you're right. Monica nodded, agreeing with her husband's arguments, but there was sadness and a sense of loss in her gaze. I'm sorry, I'm just tired from the week. There are so many clients, and it takes a lot of nerves to talk to all of them and calm them down. It's a good thing we have a team of real masters of their craft. We couldn't have done it alone, and that's entirely your merit. Darling, Samuel decided to change the subject. I got a call from Harry inviting me to a private men's club tonight. He got a business card somewhere. The man laughed. I want to keep him company. You and I spend all our time together, at home, at work, and have fun together. Let's take a little break from each other, shall we? I'll go with Harry. You go out with your girlfriends. I'm sure we'll have something to talk about. How would you like that? It's a wonderful suggestion. Wiping away her tears, Monica smiled. It's true, I haven't seen the girls for a long time with this job, and you and I don't know how to relax. Even at home we manage to discuss work issues. You're right, we should take a little break from each other. That's great. Samuel was happy, and starting the engine said, Then now I'll go home, change my clothes, and go to the club. Changing a strict business suit, a shirt and jeans, Samuel felt free and happy. I didn't expect this, he said, buttoning the sleeves of his shirt and putting on a light-colored jacket. That clothes could have such an effect on your mood. Not clothes. The woman laughed, carefully adjusting his collar. The anticipation of seeing a friend. By the way, what is he doing now? I don't know exactly, but last time he said he got a job in some private clinic, still looking for himself and still single. You look very attractive in loose clothes, funny, even younger. Make sure you don't swap me for some pretty girl without a second glance. You have nothing to worry about. Kissing Monica, Samuel assured her. I don't need anyone but you. Any pretty girl would look pale next to you. You're a beauty. He brought the woman to his bosom, saying goodbye. That's it, I'm off. Be a good girl, don't spare any money. Have a great vacation with your girlfriends. 3 hours later, Samuel drove up to the building Harry had indicated. He met him at the entrance. What took you so long? His friend rebuked him, extending his hand. The handshake was firm. Harry was tall, handsome, and had been a ladies' man in college. He still was. He took women lightly, didn't burden himself with serious relationships. The searing look of his brown eyes attracted his admirers. They flew to him like butterflies to the light and burned their wings in the same way. Harry is a convinced bachelor. The best seats are already taken, of course. He said sadly, Let's see what's left, and hopefully we'll get better girls. What girls? Samuel asked. I'm not going to meet any girls. Believe me, you'll lose a lot if you don't. It's the best men's club in town, and they have such waitresses. He clucked his tongue promisingly. You're gonna rock. From the outside, the room did not give away that it was a nightclub. The broad-shouldered guard at the entrance, in a classic black jacket, with the unruffled face of a bare-knuckle fighter, looked at them suspiciously, about to ask them to pass, but when he saw Harry's business card, he smiled broadly and took a step back from the door, giving permission to enter. The friends made their way down the stone steps of the staircase below. Good evening. A beautiful woman, about 40 years old, a little overweight, dressed in a luxurious black dress with sequins, greeted them languidly. Her breasts were adorned with an expensive diamond necklace and earrings glittered in her ears. "I am Barbara, the hostess of the establishment." She held out a plump hand in a lace glove to each of the men in turn. They leaned toward her in a welcoming bow, kissing her thick, sausage-like fingers. "Is this your first time with us?" She turned to Samuel, appraising him from head to toe. He nodded in agreement. "Come in, have a seat." She pointed to the private tables, with soft, cozy chairs that were scattered in the semi-darkness of the room. The huge bar was sparkling with lights. The bartender was mixing a cocktail behind the bar, playing with a shaker, deftly pouring the contents into glasses. Waitresses, beautiful young girls, in clothes that hid almost nothing, were scurrying between the booths. "Where are we?" Samuel shouted in his buddy's ear. "It's all a little too open here. To be honest, I didn't expect it." "My friend," Harry laughed, "are you embarrassed by beautiful half-naked girls? You and I are not old, and they should arouse passion and desire in you, not fear. I hope you don't have any male problems." "No problems, but I love my wife." The man was indignant. "Why do I need half-naked girls?" "Only you are not forced to marry them, and if you like some chick, you can use their services. I won't tell Monica about your little pranks." Harry winked at his friend. "Admire a woman's beauty. It relieves fatigue, but let's order," he suggested, waving to someone. A waitress approached them. The mound of red hair was decorated with a tiara. Thin black leather straps barely covered her breasts, smoothly passing to the waistband of a short, very short, bright red skirt. Long, shapely legs in black lace stockings and high-heeled shoes completed the portrait. Harry quickly dictated something to her. She wrote it down carefully and walked away, wiggling her hips invitingly. "This isn't the first time you've been here, is it?" Samuel asked suspiciously, looking at his friend. "Who's forbidding me? I'm single. I have not met a woman like your Monica. You are the one who is lucky in life, a beautiful wife, a great surgeon, and now you have your own business. If I had all that, I'd probably stay home too. No one forbade you to study hard at the Institute." The man snapped at me. "You could have achieved a lot. My wife and I worked like hell, and you spent all your free time in bars and restaurants. Is it possible to find a worthy life partner there? They're workaholics." Again laughed Buddy. "I'm jealous in a good way. Don't take offense. Enjoy the evening. Everything is good. Here is our order." He woke up when he saw a pretty girl with a tray in her hands. "How appetizing you are," he sang, devouring with his eyes the chiseled figure of the waitress. Long, black, luxurious hair freely did not fall on her shoulders, and large brown eyes warily watched the man who sat dangerously close to her. She deftly served the order and disappeared. "I like her." Decisively rising from his seat, Harry said, heading toward Barbara. "I want to order her for myself before someone else takes her." "Harry, where are you going?" "Maybe we shouldn't rush. The evening's just beginning." His friend tried to talk him out of it, but the man wouldn't listen. "Barbara," Harry addressed the hostess, "I want that girl for tonight." "No, you don't," the woman objected softly. "She's only been here a week." "I don't want to frighten her. I'm teaching her everything, but she doesn't know the details yet." "Let her get used to it a little." "So what's the problem?" "I'll teach her. I know how to do it. You know me." He winked at Barbara. "I'll pay you well." "Okay," smiling, the woman agreed. "I'll do it your way, but no funny business. I don't want to have to deal with her relatives later." They looked at each other understandingly, and the hostess left the room. "Let's have a drink, shall we?" Smiling, Harry returned to his seat and raised his glass, urging Samuel to do the same. I don't understand you. You've been Monica for 10 years. Don't you get tired of each other? Look how many beautiful women there are around, and you don't like any of them. I don't believe it. How can Monica get bored? Question to question, Samuel answered. We have the same interests. We think alike, and our feelings have grown stronger over the years. We're not just lovers anymore, we're partners. We love our work, we give our whole soul to it. That's why we have good reviews about our clinic. I envy you. Harry said thoughtfully. They were able to carry love and friendship through the years. Now it is rare to meet such couples. Share your experience. What is the secret of your strong family life? There is no secret, Samuel smiled. Over the years, the extravagant passion has passed, and feelings have turned into a stable and reliable relationship. We tremblingly and tenderly take care of each other, from good. Good is not sought, you know. My wife and I have overcome all difficulties together. We understand each other with half a word. We are never bored together. In case you didn't know, that's what love is. And you still haven't had children. No, we can't have children. That's a pity. You would have been beautiful. I've always dreamed of being related to you through children. Unfortunately, it's impossible. Why don't you want to seek professional help? Monica is not ready, Samuel said sadly, and the work takes up too much time. Well, don't you dare say the word work tonight. We are relaxing, enjoying life and looking at naked girls. Friends have a drink, relax a little. Pleasant music, dimmed lights. Samuel liked the atmosphere. He already felt the inner tension, which had not left him lately, gradually receded. Suddenly, the audience in the hall became lively. The friends, as if on command, turned their heads towards the stage. There, among the bright flashes of light, appeared girls dancers, performing a belly dance. Slender, plastic, they easily moved to the sounds of the oriental melody. The girls masterfully possessed their bodies, delighting the audience. They were moving swiftly on the stage, then paused, giving the audience to enjoy themselves. Then suddenly every cell of the body began to vibrate, from the tips of the fingers on the hands to the delicate pink handkerchief, making the surrounding men whistle in admiration, shouting various obscenities, watching what was happening on stage. "What do you think?" asked Harry. "It's great. It's marvelous. I've never seen anything like it." And you hesitated whether to go or not. You don't see so many beautiful women anywhere. We've got women just as beautiful under the scalpel. Don't compare. It's natural beauty, and yours is artificial. You can't understand the sense of satisfaction I feel when a woman is satisfied with the operation. And what happens, and someone is not satisfied? Unfortunately, in any job, there are failures. There was a case when a woman with tears asked to return the volume of her breasts. Another did not like the shape of her nose. People are different, so no one is immune to scandal, but still, there are more positive comments. "Oh my God," Harry laughed. "We're back on the subject of work. I suggest we play a game of billiards. How do you feel about it? I haven't held a cue in my hands for a long time." Samuel was cautious. "I'm afraid I'll be an uninteresting partner for you. Nothing you'll remember. It's like riding a bicycle. Once you learn once, you'll never forget. Come on, billiards is a game for real men. I remember you were pretty good at the top screw. I'll give you a head start." At first, they lazily pushed the cue, driving balls into the hole one by one. Then Samuel got into the taste. In his eyes, there was a gambling light. "Let's play for a bottle of cognac," he suggested. "I'll make you like a juvenile," Harry said condescendingly. "We'll see." Samuel answered evasively. If you remember, I was the best at rolling balls in my class. I don't mind. My friend laughed. But that was 10 years ago, and I'm practicing regularly. However, you suggested it yourself. Prepare money if you have extra. But be kind enough to buy the most expensive cognac, not some cheap stuff. Don't be fooled. Getting into a rage stopped the man. There's no telling who's going to lose. I don't like to be second, you know that. They played a game, exchanging meaningless phrases. What, did you brag? Samuel looked victoriously at his friend, putting the cue on the table. And I warned you. It's a shame to admit it. Scratching the back of his head, Harry lamented. But you won all right. Don't worry. I'll buy you a cognac. Although, as I know, it's better for doctors to refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages, especially plastic surgeons. Don't go off topic. The man stopped him. Or did you spare some money for an old friend? They left the game and went into a cozy booth, hidden by thick drapes from prying eyes. I wanted to say thank you very much for tonight. My friends were sitting on comfortable soft sofas. The hops were dizzying my head. The club's atmosphere allowed me to relax and not think about anything. I only now realized how tired I was. I hadn't taken a vacation in a long time. Monica and I are always at work. No, I'm not complaining. I just realized how damn tired I am. It's good to be in a man's company. It's so relaxing. Don't thank me. Harry waved him away. I'm glad we're having a good time too. Believe me, sometimes it's good to take a break from each other. You don't know how to relax at all. Why are you always looking at your phone? He asked reproachfully, noticing how tensely Samuel looked at the screen from time to time. I think I have to go now. Guiltily, the man said. Monica will be angry. It's getting late. I'm surprised she hasn't called me by now. I hope you put the phone on mute. Harry looked at him suspiciously. Sudden calls are not welcome here. Nothing should distract visitors. It's a condition of the club. Of course, I understand. It's just that Monica would be worried, and I don't want to worry her. You're a pansy, buddy. Harry exclaimed. You've got it all wrong. Samuel objected. I'm not used to vacationing without her. We're always together. In fact, I'd like to get to bed. The week's stress is taking its toll, and I'm not used to partying at night. Don't be in a hurry to leave. My buddy smiled enigmatically. It's still early days. Samuel looked at his friend puzzled, but gave in and remained seated. Harry pressed the call button, and a waitress entered the room, the same one who had approached them in the hall. In her hands, the girl held a tray with glasses and a light appetizer. Here's the surprise. The man stood up, took the tray, placed it on the table. We've been waiting for you, oh beautiful child. He grinned, looking at the frightened girl appraisingly. Sit with us. The man forced her to sit down beside him. What's your name? Cindy. The girl tried her best to move away from the intrusive customer. Sorry, we're not supposed to talk to customers. Nice to meet you. I'm Harry. And this, ignoring the objection, the man pointed to a friend. Samuel. He watched the scene blankly. He had already guessed that all the waitresses here provided intimate services to the customers. He was not very pleased to see his friend trying to flirt with a girl. The man frantically thought about how to politely leave without offending Harry. He didn't need all these games. He didn't even think about the possibility of cheating on his wife. Why was Harry putting on such a show gear? Samuel thought with disgust. He knows I love Monica and have no interest in other women. You're so sweet. Harry continued to court Cindy. That's an unusual name you have. Did you make it up on purpose so the clients would remember you better? He took the girl's hand and kissed the delicate fingers. Do you want to make a lot of money? He stared at her questioningly. "How much do you get in a month?" The girl was silent, looking warily at the drunken visitor. "And I offer you the same money, only for an evening in our company." The man, with his free hand, ran it along Cindy's naked thigh. Samuel watched from the side, did not interfere, thinking that this is the custom here, foreplay before intimacy. "What do you think you're doing?" The girl recoiled fearfully from Harry. "Let go at once," she said in horror, trying to wrestle her hand from the man's firm grasp. "I'm going to scream. Why are you breaking?" Harry smiled drunkenly as he continued to hold the waitress. "Don't ruin my buddy and I's evening. Look at him, he's obsessed with his job. One night he let himself relax. Give him a hand. Do what you do best. Samuel, seize the opportunity. I give you the right to be her first. And you, beautiful." Once again he turned to the girl. "Don't be afraid. My buddy won't offend the poor girl. He will be very polite. There's no telling who's going to lose. I don't like to be second, you know that." They played a game, exchanging meaningless phrases. "What did you brag?" Samuel looked victoriously at his friend, putting the cue on the table. "And I warned you." "It's a shame to admit it." Scratching the back of his head, Harry lamented. "But you won all right. Don't worry. I'll buy you a cognac. Although, as I know, it's better for doctors to refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages, especially plastic surgeons." "Don't go off topic." The man stopped him. "Or did you spare some money for an old friend?" They left the game and went into a cozy booth, hidden by thick drapes from prying eyes. "I wanted to say thank you very much for tonight. My friends were sitting on comfortable soft sofas, the hops were dizzying my head, the club's atmosphere allowed me to relax and not think about anything. I only now realized how tired I was. I hadn't taken a vacation in a long time. Monica and I are always at work. No, I'm not complaining. I just realized how damn tired I am. It's good to be in a man's company. It's so relaxing." "Don't thank me." Harry waved him away. "I'm glad we're having a good time, too. Believe me, sometimes it's good to take a break from each other. You don't know how to relax at all. Why are you always looking at your phone?" he asked reproachfully, noticing how tensely Samuel looked at the screen from time to time. "I think I have to go now." Guiltily, the man said. "Monica will be angry. It's getting late. I'm surprised she hasn't called me by now." "I hope you put the phone on mute." Harry looked at him suspiciously. Sudden calls are not welcome here. Nothing should distract visitors. It's a condition of the club. Of course, I understand. It's just that Monica would be worried, and I don't want to worry her." "You're a pansy, buddy," Harry exclaimed. "You've got it all wrong," Samuel objected. "I'm not used to vacationing without her. We're always together. In fact, I'd like to get to bed. The week's stress is taking its toll, and I'm not used to partying at night. Don't be in a hurry to leave." My buddy smiled enigmatically. "It's still early days." Samuel looked at his friend puzzled, but gave in and remained seated. Harry pressed the call button, and a waitress entered the room, the same one who had approached them in the hall. In her hands, the girl held a tray with glasses and a light appetizer. "Here's the surprise." The man stood up, took the tray, placed it on the table. "We've been waiting for you, oh beautiful child." He grinned, looking at the frightened girl appraisingly. "Sit with us." The man forced her to sit down beside him. "What's your name?" "Cindy." The girl tried her best to move away from the intrusive customer. "Sorry, we're not supposed to talk to customers. Nice to meet you. I'm Harry." And this, ignoring the objection, the man pointed to a friend. "Samuel." He watched the scene blankly. He had already guessed that all the waitresses here provided intimate services to the customers. He was not very pleased to see his friend trying to flirt with a girl. The man frantically thought about how to politely leave without offending Harry. He didn't need all these games. He didn't even think about the possibility of cheating on his wife. Why was Harry putting on such a show here? Samuel thought with disgust. He knows I love Monica and have no interest in other women. You're so sweet. Harry continued to court Cindy. That's an unusual name you have. Did you make it up on purpose so the clients would remember you better? He took the girl's hand and kissed the delicate fingers. Do you want to make a lot of money? He stared at her questioningly. How much do you get in a month? The girl was silent, looking warily at the drunken visitor. And I offer you the same money, only for an evening in our company. The man, with his free hand, ran it along Cindy's naked thigh. Samuel watched from the side, did not interfere, thinking that this is the custom here, foreplay before intimacy. What do you think you're doing? The girl recoiled fearfully from Harry. Let go at once, she said in horror, trying to wrestle her hand from the man's firm grasp. I'm going to scream. Why are you breaking? Harry smiled drunkenly as he continued to hold the waitress. Don't ruin my Buddy and I's evening. Look at him. He's obsessed with his job. One night, he let himself relax. Give him a hand. Do what you do best. Samuel, seize the opportunity. I give you the right to be her first. And you, beautiful. Once again he turned to the girl. Don't be afraid, my Buddy won't offend the poor girl. He will be very polite. Don't be stubborn, you'll like it. Harry, I don't think she really knows what you want her to do. Leave her alone. Don't overplay it, pretty girl. Drunkenly smirked his friend, trying to hug, kiss the girl, not paying attention to Samuel's words, like she didn't know where she was going. I'm just a waitress. I brought your order. Let me go. Cindy was seriously startled to find herself in the company of two disembodied men. You brought the order? Harry laughed. I don't pay that kind of money for a glass of cognac. I can have a drink at home. Samuel saw that his friend was angry. Let's go to the room. He stood up and pulled the girl behind him. She stubbornly tried to reason with the client. Let me go, please. I'm not that kind of girl. I'm just a waitress. The intimate services are provided by other girls. Would you like me to call Barbara? She'll choose the most experienced one for you. Anyone would be honored to spend the night with you. I don't want other girls. I want you. You're obliged to fulfill your client's wishes. No, I didn't consent to these services. Who do you think you are? Who here is interested in your consent? Are you so naive that you left without realizing how girls make money here? You're playing hard to get, but admit it, you're ready to lie under anyone, just to pay money. You're just trying to sell yourself, aren't you? It's not true. You're all lying. The girl shouted, tears flowing from her eyes. Samuel finally began to realize that the girl was not joking. She was tricked into this club where rich men are debauched. I'm tired of you. Meanwhile, Harry was finally getting angry. I don't care whether or not you know what's going on. Don't play hard to get. Barbara promised me you, and I'm not giving up until I get what's mine. Please, Cindy begged, not wanting to go with Harry. Let me go, asked Barbara. You need another girl. She fought back as best she could, trying to break free from the clinging hands of the lust-fueled man. Don't touch me. The landlady came to the noise. What's going on here? She asked angrily, adjusting her hands in lace gloves, luxurious bust. Here. Harry pointed to Cindy. She refuses to honor the terms of the contract. I wanted to make nice with her. Don't you dare ruin the reputation of this place. You'll do as you're told. Barbara went after her. She knew exactly where she was going to work. You don't have to be so innocent. Did you sign the contract? One of the terms and conditions is to provide the services requested by the club's client. That's not true. The girl shouted desperately. I did not sign such a contract. You have no right to force me to sleep with customers. Don't talk nonsense, angrily hissed the landlady. Go to the 3rd floor. I'll show you the contract form with your signature. You'll work with this client. She nodded at Harry. For free. You'll be smarter next time and try not to upset me, or I'll call the guard and you'll sing differently. He's not going to be nice to you. He'll explain your rights and responsibilities. He knows how to do it well. You'll be like silk, and they'll throw you out on the street like a kitten. You won't find a decent job anywhere else. Believe me, I have connections. Stop it. Samuel stood up for the girl. What are you doing to her? Harry, he looked at his friend reproachfully. I didn't expect you to be so mean. You've always been gentle with women, haven't you? What's the matter with you? Why are you forcing the poor girl? Take another girl if you must. There must be someone more experienced. Why are you picking on her? Don't bring me up now. The man snapped at her. She's expendable. There are dozens of them here. Step aside. I'll deal with her myself. I paid money for her and I want what's mine. You see, the girl doesn't want to go anywhere with you. Samuel took off his jacket and put it on the shoulders of the sobbing Cindy. Don't worry, I won't let you get hurt. Come with me. What are you doing? Where are you going with her? I get it. You've decided to take advantage of the little bugger yourself, haven't you? Harry laughed raucously. Go ahead, my friend. I don't mind. I was going to split it between the two of us, but I can live with that. Take advantage. I'm being kind today. But what about your Monica? He laughed. You've decided to change your principles for some pretty girl. You're even willing to fight with a friend. How can you say that? I don't recognize you. Tiredly, Samuel remarked. Where has the good, decent Harry disappeared to, my friend? Leave the girl alone. Barbara tried to intervene. This is my employee. You can leave, but leave her alone. I'll call the guards. Samuel took Cindy by the hand and moved towards the exit. Get out of the way. Decisively, he commanded Harry and Barbara. No one dared to oppose him. The guard, thinking that the girl had voluntarily gone with the client, silently opened the door in front of them. The man put the girl in the car. Where are you going home? Asked Samuel Cindy. He carefully adjusted the jacket on her shoulders, took away a strand of hair to see her face, and then the girl, apparently, finally realizing that nothing else threatens her, ducked it to the shoulder of her savior and sobbed in her voice. The man embraced her awkwardly, pulling her against him soothingly. Well, it's all behind you now. How did you so carelessly sign the contract and not even read it carefully? Why did you join this place in the first place? Tell me, it'll make you feel better, believe me. Me, she was sobbing. I need money, and Jenna, my classmate, said it pays well. So, do you need a lot of money? Cindy nodded silently. Why would a young girl need a lot of money? It's a long story. I'm afraid you don't have time to listen to me. She was silent for a moment, as if considering whether or not to tell it. I was terrified when I heard that. Like a mad woman, I ran out of the house, caught a cab, and went to the hospital. There the doctor on duty took me to the resident's room and called the investigator, who asked some stupid questions, but I remember almost nothing. So they are alive? Samuel asked me. Are your parents alive? My mom died on the spot. My dad was in a coma for a long time, almost a month. I had to bury my mom myself. The girl said quietly, I don't know how I survived the identification procedure. the funeral, and the wake. I have no one to help me. I think at that moment I grew up 10 years. Poor you, how you suffered. The man squeezed her hand. I remember that my neighbor in the stairwell all persuaded me to cry, but I did not shed a tear at the cemetery. Mom was lying in the coffin so beautiful, as if alive. I didn't want to believe that she was gone. The scariest part was coming back to an empty apartment. The feeling of bitter loss overtook me, and I finally gave vent to tears. For several days I didn't leave the house. I didn't want to see or hear anyone. My neighbor sometimes called me, brought me food, and tried to distract me from sad thoughts, but I did not react to anything. I threw the food away at once and kept lying there, lying against the wall. I loved my mother very much. The girl was quiet. I didn't even want to live without her. But then I pulled myself together for the sake of my father. I didn't know if he would come out of his coma, but I couldn't leave him alone. If he woke up, he would need my help. When I came to the hospital a few days later, the doctor encouraged me, saying that my father had a good chance of recovery. I went to the hospital every day after classes, sat at his bedside all evenings, read books for him, and prepared to enter the institute. Talking to him. It was very hard. I realized with my mind that perhaps it would be better for him to leave after his mother than to spend his whole life in a wheelchair. But then I prayed to God to keep him alive. The fear of losing both my parents followed me around. And where is your father now? At home with me. He took the loss of my mom very hard. I told you they were very attached to each other. The news of her death took a toll on him. The damage to his spine left no chance of a full recovery. He went to rehab, of course, but it didn't help him get back on his feet. In addition, we began to have financial difficulties. All the money saved by my mother went for her funeral and for my father's treatment. All procedures, medicines, accommodation in the rehabilitation center turned out to be paid, and we still have to live on something to pay utility bills. And what about the institute? I had to forget about the institute. I needed a job because we had no income except for my father's miserable disability pension. I got a job as a courier. The salary was small, but I was satisfied with the free schedule because I could not leave my father alone for long. He could not even go to the toilet without me. Although I was running around the city with deliveries like an eagle for days and nights on end, I was still desperately short of money. My father's pension was almost all spent on his treatment. How did you survive it all? So small, fragile. You can't imagine how hard it was for me. I'd come home and drop dead on the bed. And at such a moment, when I was ready to surrender to the mercy of despair, my friend and classmate Jenna appears on the doorstep of the apartment. We've been friends since childhood. I remember that tiredness knocked me off my feet that night, and I fell asleep right in my clothes on the living room couch. The doorbell woke me up. I was startled because I wasn't expecting any visitors, especially so late. Jenna looked stunning, expensively, and stylishly dressed, with hair, makeup, as if she had just come from a high-end beauty salon. She knew about the trouble that had befallen our family, was aware that I was in dire need of money. She told me that she works as a waitress in a closed but very popular nightclub, where the rest is for rich and respectable men who are not stingy on generous tips. In the restaurant, the prices are prohibitive, the cuisine is first class, and the employees are allowed to take out the food left by the guests. No stranger can get in from the street. The club entrance is strictly by business card. The friend was not deceived. The salary was even higher than my expectations. The only thing I was not satisfied with was the uniform, but I threw away all shame. For that kind of money, I was willing to walk around naked. Are you judging me? Cindy looked at Samuel questioningly. No. The The man genuinely felt sorry for the girl who'd been through such an ordeal. "I think I'd do anything for a loved one. I realize you had no other choice." "Thank you." She turned away again, her eyes filled with pain and confusion. After only a week's work, I was able to provide my father with a month's worth of medication. I was happy. She was silent, trying to cope with her worries. But I forgot that free cheese only comes in a mousetrap. I did not guess that the owners for such a high salary will require me to provide guests intimate services. To be honest, I really did not read carefully the text of the contract, which was slipped to me when I got a job at the club. The amount of money Barbara offered me for waitressing made me unable to think straight. She threw her head back and looked at her savior in despair. "Do you believe me? I'm not a prostitute. Even for my father's sake, I can't go to bed with a strange man." She started to cry, smearing tears on her face, her thin shoulders shuddering. Samuel was confused. He didn't know what to do. He took a handkerchief out of his pocket and handed it to the girl. She grabbed it. "Thank you." The sobs got quieter and quieter. "I don't know what to do now. How to go on living? I'm so tired from this damn life, from lack of money. I want to kill myself, not to suffer, but I feel sorry for my father. He'll be lost without me." And so much in her voice was deadly fatigue that everything turned over in Samuel's soul from pity for her. He put his arms around her and kissed her. Cindy did not resist, but clung to the man trustingly, hugged his neck awkwardly, and answered the kiss. "My darling, my little one," repeated the man, kissing salty from bitter tears, cheeks, eyes, lips of the girl. "How have you suffered? I will not abandon you. I will help you. You'll see, everything will work out. I have money, enough for you and for your father's treatment. I won't let anyone hurt you." Samuel reluctantly pulled away from Cindy, wiped the tears from her eyes. "I'll take you home now. Give me the address. You'll rest, regain your strength, and then we'll think together about how to help you." He stopped the car in the driveway. "Well, it's time for you to go. It's getting late." Samuel was struggling with an inner struggle with himself. He realized with his head that he had to let her go, and his heart was already burning with desire, but the man held on, so that later he would not suffer from remorse that he had taken advantage of her trustfulness and sense of gratitude for her rescue. So they sat in silence, each thought of his own. Cindy did not dare to get out of the car. She certainly did not believe that this handsome and rich man would help her. Why should he hang my problems on himself? The girl thought, what could I give him in return? A beggar, and even with a sick father on top of it. But I'm not offended. He rescued me from that brothel. Although now I have to look for a job again. Goodbye, she said quietly and got out of the car reluctantly. Samuel called out to her, "Give me your phone number and I'll call you." He wrote everything down, sent a kiss goodbye, and drove away, leaving behind a cloud of dust. The girl stood a little longer and then went home. Her thoughts were confused by what had happened. Her life had changed abruptly in an instant. She couldn't forget the face of the man who treated her not with disdain, but with understanding. She was so tired of fighting the vicissitudes of fate alone that she wanted to lean on someone's strong shoulder. The image of the man kept her awake, and Cindy rolled around in bed until almost morning, remembering how he had kissed her. She finally fell asleep, clutching Samuel's jacket to her chest. Finally, squinting sleepily, Monica met Samuel in the hallway. "I thought you weren't coming back today." She reached up to kiss him. "You smell of expensive cognac, tobacco, and feminine perfume. Did you have a good night? What else am I supposed to smell like when I come back from a men's club? The man tried to make a joke, dodging his wife. Naturally, there were women there. And dancing a private dance? Laughing, she began to stretch the buttons on her shirt. It didn't come to that. Thank goodness. Pulling away from his wife, Samuel spoke. No need. I'm going straight to the bathroom. Where's your jacket? Monica looked at her husband suspiciously. I hope you didn't leave it at the club? Oh, shit, the man realized. I didn't take it from Cindy. I left it at Harry's. For the first time in his life, he lied to his wife. We're still a little gray at his place, but I'll pick it up tomorrow. What are you doing up? I was waiting for you. I can't sleep without you. He went to the bathroom, washed his face, and stood looking at his reflection in the mirror for a long time. You're screwed, man, he said to himself. You don't want to fall in love with a girl who is almost twice your age. The obliging memory returned to the image of a black-haired sweet girl, as Njava saw her crying face and full of suffering brown eyes. Darling, Monica called out to him. Why are you stuck in the bathroom? It's past your bedtime. I'm coming. Samuel replied, shaking off the annoying thoughts. How did you rest? The woman asked, snuggling up to her husband. Didn't regret that you agreed to go? Good, but it was noisy. I can still hear the music in my ears. He hugged Monica, but he didn't feel the same longing for his wife that always ended in passion. What's wrong with me? He pondered. I love her. I still love her. But why do I suddenly feel nothing for her? Why am I suddenly annoyed by this woman lying next to me? Don't be silly, boy. Samuel tried to talk some sense into himself. You have 10 years of marriage and Cindy, a passing attraction. Monica began to caress her husband, reached for his lips, but Samuel carefully rejected her attempts to awaken desire in him. Let's not do this tonight. I'm tired. He pretended to yawn, pretending to be sleepy. You must be getting old. The woman laughed. You're tired of the night's entertainment. I hope you haven't had a young mistress to tire you out. Be warned, I am fearsome in anger. Samuel blushed. Good thing it's dark, he thought. It seemed to him that Monica was reading his thoughts. No, of course not. It's just too many experiences for one day. The woman placed her hand on his and fell silent. Soon the man heard her even breathing. Afraid to disturb, released from her embrace, got up and moved to the sofa in the living room, lay awake for a long time. The image of the girl did not give rest. Darling, why are you sleeping here? Woke up early in the morning Samuel, surprised voice of his wife. I couldn't sleep. I was afraid to wake you up. He answered with difficulty, coming to himself. Apparently, the rest in the nightclub was not good, but me and the girls yesterday had a good rest, sat with a glass of wine, talked. They say hi to you. Monica leaned over and kissed her husband tenderly. Again he realized that he didn't feel the same feelings as he did when his wife was close to him. Monica was busy in the kitchen. They had a quick breakfast, got ready, and went to work. Monday dragged on unbearably long. Samuel kept looking at his watch as if he could make the hands move faster. Finally, as was his habit, he cleaned up his desk and went to his wife's office. Monica, he said, trying to make his voice sound convincing. I have to go to the warehouse. The equipment has arrived. You know, you need to check all the documents carefully. Can you get home by yourself? Monica, without lifting her head from the table, answered, Okay, honey. I just wanted to do a little more work here today. There's always something to do at the end of the day on Monday. Just don't stay too long. Samuel walked to his car, feeling remorseful, but he couldn't help it. He was magnetically drawn to the girl he had met at the nightclub. Stopping at her entrance, he called, holding his breath, listening to the ringing tone. What if she didn't answer? If she was only pretending, poor sheep? He thought, but it is impossible to play grief in such a way. Then he contradicted himself. Hello. Finally, he heard the receiver. Go ahead, I can't hear you. Cindy. In a hoarse, excited voice, Samuel said, I'm waiting for you downstairs. She appeared almost immediately, as if she had been sitting waiting for the call. She looked around. I'm here. He waved to her without getting out of the car. The girl smiled and ran to him. Hello, she said, sitting down on the seat next to him and staring intensely into the man's eyes, as if trying to read what he was thinking. I didn't think you'd call anymore. We went back to being on a first-name basis yesterday. Noticed Samuel, reached up and kissed her lips. They were soft, supple. The man was suddenly dizzy with desire. I've rented a room for us at the hotel. Do you mind? Cindy nodded in agreement. Shall we go then? They were silent the whole way. The hotel receptionist looked at both of them understandingly, but said nothing, only put the room keys on the counter. 4th floor, to the right. On the table there are phone numbers if you want to order something for yourself or have any questions. Have a nice vacation. Samuel let the girl go ahead and went behind him, feeling the mocking glance of the receptionist. So be it. He waved his hand. That's how a lot of people live. Why can't I spend time with a girl I like? Yes, I'm ashamed of Monica, but I can't help it. When he entered the room, the first thing he did was shut the windows. Cindy stood there, shuffling from foot to foot in embarrassment. Samuel walked over to her, took her by the shoulders, looked into her eyes. I won't be able to see you often. Work takes up all my time. Would you agree to see me a couple times a week here? I realize that my offer sounds strange. You were probably hoping for something else, but I can't offer more than that. I agree, the girl said quietly. She would do anything to have him around, even if it was just once in a while. Samuel hugged her gratefully and kissed her, lightly at first, then more and more firmly. He felt the girl trembling in his arms, and he himself, inebriated with passion, could no longer restrain his desire. Hastily throwing off his clothes, helped her. My girl, he whispered, panting with tenderness. How good it feels to be with you. Their sighs merged into one voluptuous moan, their heated bodies pressed against each other again and again. He lay next to Cindy, and she fell asleep, exhausted from the emotion of the experience. My God, what a wretch I am. Tormented by remorse, Samuel. But I can't help it. This girl has got me. Cindy. He woke her quietly with a kiss. We should get going. The girl stretched sweetly. I don't want to leave you for a moment. She pressed herself against him trustingly, squinting in pleasure. Unfortunately, I can't stay with you. Samuel got up decisively, went to the bathroom and cleaned himself up. When will I see you again? Cindy asked sadly. I'll let you know, be on the phone. The man hurried his mistress. Monica could call at any moment, puzzled by his long absence. He drove the girl home, kissed her, and went to his wife. Sorry, I was late. Guilty, Samuel said, taking off his shoes and walking into the living room, where Monica was sitting, staring at her laptop. That's okay. I just had time to finish my work. Now, she got up from the couch, walked over to her husband, kissed him. I'm all yours. Let's go to the bedroom. I miss you. Darling, I'm tired today. I've been running around. I have so much to do on Monday, you know. I want to go straight to bed if you're not convinced. All right, have it your way. The woman said cheerfully, returning to the computer on the couch. I'll just sit here for a while. Good night." Samuel stood in front of his wife and then went to the bedroom. "How can I deceive her?" thought he, pretending to be asleep. "We've been together for so many years, know each other perfectly well. What am I doing? If Monica finds out, it will be a disaster. I will never forgive myself for cheating on her." Samuel couldn't bring himself to stop seeing Cindy. Twice a week, he diligently found excuses for his wife to visit the girl. Monica suspected nothing. For 10 years of their life together, neither of them had harbored even a spark of doubt about the honesty of the relationship, and from this Samuel was tormented even more. "I know that Cindy and I have no future, but I have no idea how to tell her, and I don't want to lose her. Oh my God!" grabbing my head, suffering from my inability to solve the problem. "I love my wife after all, and I will never leave her. I'm well aware of that. I realize that I must break up with Cindy. But how? I can't go on without her. What can I do?" Every time Samuel returned from his mistress to his wife, he chastised himself for his weakness. He was so caught up in a web of lies that it was hard to breathe. He could not get out of this vicious circle. "Darling, what's going on with you?" Monica asked him one day. "You don't seem like yourself lately. You don't sleep well, you eat badly, you linger somewhere. You come home nervous, upset. Are you sick? What can I do for you?" she asked me sympathetically. "Don't worry, I'm just a little behind on my work, and now I'm trying to catch up. But I'm fine, don't mind me, everything will be back to normal soon. You can't work too hard, you have to rest once in a while. I need you healthy and with strong nerves. What kind of a leader are you if you're tired and fall off your feet? That's it, we can't go on like this." The man decided, listening to how sincerely worried about his health Monica. "Something has to be done about it. Today I have to tell Cindy the truth. Stop deceiving both of them. She is still young, she will meet another man, she will love him, and they will surely be happy. I can't give her anything." In the evening, determined to have a serious conversation, he arrived at the hotel, where an unsuspecting girl was waiting for him in his room. "Samuel." She threw herself on his neck as soon as he opened the door. "I have news for you." "Wait." Unclasping her hands, the man spoke. "We need to have a serious talk. You're not listening to me." Cindy laughed, ignoring her lover's mood. "You and I are going to have a baby. Can you imagine? Baby? I'm so happy, my love." She kissed him firmly. "Sit down, please," asked Samuel, glowing with joy the girl. "I have something to tell you." The smile slid off Cindy's face. The man paused, gathering his thoughts. "I like you very much, and I'm happy I met you, but we can't be together." "Why not?" Cindy whispered with one lip. "I'm married." He looked her straight in the eye. "I know I look like a scoundrel. I should have come clean a long time ago, but I couldn't." The man jumped to his feet and paced the room, ruffling his hair nervously. "You have become like a breath of fresh air for me. My wife and I have been together for 10 years. I love her. We have a joint business. I can't just throw it all away. I can't and won't do it. Understand me?" He stopped in front of Cindy, lifted her by the shoulders from the bed, looked into her eyes, which had become completely dark from his sudden confession. He shook her. "Why don't you say something? Say that I'm a scumbag, that I took advantage of you, and you'll be right. What about me?" Tears came out of the girl's eyes. "I will help you financially, will not leave you until you find a new job. Do not worry about it. And the baby? Our baby, what about him?" "I'm sorry, but you'll have to have an abortion." "Abortion?" Cindy said fearfully. Are you suggesting we kill our child? You're a big girl. You must realize that we don't want this baby. We're not going to build a family. I can't let you raise it alone. It's better if you have an abortion. It's the smartest thing to do. Please don't object. Just do as I asked. Can you hear yourself? Cindy couldn't believe that the same man who had rescued her from the nightclub— "No, I'm fine," Samuel replied, taking a break from his thoughts. "I wanted to watch some good program, but I didn't find anything interesting. Shall we go for a walk? Take your mind off the sad thoughts that have been bothering you lately." "Why do you say that?" "I'm fine. Something's been going on with you since the night you went to the nightclub." "You're wrong. I've just been working a lot." "Well, if you don't want to talk, don't. Nothing to talk about, I assure you. I'm doing fine." "You have no idea how right you are in your guesses." Samuel thought, watching his wife as she tidied up before going to bed. "I was hoping that I would break up with Cindy and it would be easier. It didn't happen. I'm a rascal. I used the girl and left her. After all, I didn't deceive her. I didn't give her any hopes." He justified himself to his conscience. "I won't abandon her. I'll help her as I promised. It will not be difficult for me. And she is good too." Suddenly he remembered Cindy's confession. "She decided to blackmail me with a child without even consulting me. That's it. We must forget the whole thing." He resolutely got up from the sofa and followed Monica into the bedroom. Samuel plunged headlong into his work, trying to forget about Cindy. He truly believed that she had listened to him and had an abortion. Every day, the image of the sweet, black-haired girl came to mind less and less frequently. The reproachful look in her brown eyes no longer dreamed of him at night. He was able to convince himself that nothing terrible had happened. This is life, and it is sometimes unfair. But the boomerang of fate came to him from where he didn't expect, turning his whole world upside down. "Honey, are you coming home soon?" Monica came into the office. "I'll be a little late. Go without me." Samuel smiled at his wife. "I'll cook something delicious for dinner for us." She came over, kissed her husband, and went home. Time flew by quickly. Glancing at his watch, Samuel realized that he had gotten too deep into his work. He was just about to leave when the bell rang. "Samuel?" The man thought his wife's voice sounded tense. "Come home right away." "What's wrong, darling?" Before he could even finish, the phone rang with a short beep. Strange, what's wrong? Samuel wondered, hurriedly closing the office. Monica met him on the doorstep, her arms folded across her chest, showing that something terrible had happened and that he, Samuel, was— "I really liked her, but I only loved you. When I realized I didn't want to change anything in my life, I broke up with her right away, but she was already pregnant." "So you left her pregnant with your baby?" "Yeah, I'm a jerk, I admit it, but I didn't promise her anything. I told her I wasn't gonna leave you. I gave her money for an abortion. I hadn't seen her since the breakup. I was sure she'd listen to reason." Monica looked at him and could not believe that this was her husband, her Samuel, whom she idolized, to whom she gave all of herself, trusted as herself. It turned out that he had been deceiving her for almost a year. It was so hard on the woman's soul that she wanted to howl. "I'm glad that in the end I had the courage to confess everything to you." The man bowed his head penitently. "I understand if you don't forgive me. I'm sorry to you and to Cindy." "Yes, what are you talking about now, Samuel?" "What forgiveness? What guilt? Don't you realize what happened?" Monica almost choked on the disgust. She felt for the man she thought was the best of men. "The girl died in childbirth. Died. Do you hear me? She's gone. She was giving birth to your son. Do you understand? Your son." She was silent, unable to utter another word. It was hard for her to breathe with resentment. Finally, having coped with her emotions, she said resolutely, "I need to be alone now. Please leave and don't call me until I'm ready to talk." Samuel walked out of the house and wandered down the street, his feet bringing him to Harry's house. "Samuel?" What a surprise! The man welcomed his friend, shook his hand firmly, and escorted him into the living room. "How are you? I haven't seen you since that memorable night when you snatched that horny waitress out from under my nose. Did you make a deal with her? Or did you just walk her home? I had a real grudge against you that night." "Harry," the man looked longingly at his friend. "I'm an idiot. My wife kicked me out of the house, and I had a child out of wedlock." "Wow!" the man exclaimed in amazement. "How many things have happened in your life?" He went to the kitchen and returned a few minutes later with a light appetizer and a bottle of wine. "I think you should have a drink first." He poured the wine into glasses. "Now tell me everything in detail. I'm confused about women. I don't understand. How did I decide to cheat on Monica? All this time, deceiving her. All secret things come to light." The man Samuel sympathized. "Yeah, and at the worst possible time. Where's the mom who gave birth to you?" "That's the thing, she died in childbirth." "Wow," whistled Harry. "And the baby?" "It's in a hospital, but I don't know which one." "What do I do? How do I get Monica back? You don't have children, do you?" "Monica can't give birth on her own because she had an operation when she was a child. There's nothing to think about. You have to find that child and take it back to you. The ghost gave it to you." "Do you think so?" Samuel looked at his friend hopefully. "Of course, every woman dreams of a child, and here is a ready-made one. And not someone else's from the orphanage, but yours. It's from another woman. Will she want to accept it?" "She would," Harry assured him. "Every woman's maternal instinct is subconscious. You'll see she'll love him like he's her own." "All right." He stretched, yawned loudly. "It'll be dawn soon, so let me make your bed. Get some sleep, and in the morning, jump in the car and go look for the baby. I'm sure Monica will come back to you." In the morning, barely awake, Samuel set off in search of the baby. He went to one maternity hospital after another in the city, but there was no baby. "This address is the last one," he said as he got out of the car. "If it's not here, I have no idea where else to look." He went up to the head doctor's office, opened the door, and stood in astonishment. "Monica, what are you doing here?" "Apparently, the same thing you are," Monica answered calmly, turning at the sound of her husband's voice, wondering about the fate of the child and the mother. "And I beg your pardon, who are you?" The doctor squinted myopically at the entrant. He was sitting at the table in a snow-white coat, playing with a pen, which he held between his fingers. His round, good-natured face expressed impatience. "Have a seat. I am the biological father of the child." Samuel took the chair next to his wife. "That's very good, but we've already delivered the baby to the orphanage." He put his pen aside, stretched his fingers, and looked at the people sitting in front of him with interest. "He is perfectly healthy. All his immunizations were good, and his mother's funeral was held at the state expense. You know that her father is disabled and in the hospital, right?" Samuel nodded in agreement. "We didn't tell him that his daughter had died." The doctor was silent for a moment. "We were afraid the news would kill the old man. So you're ready to adopt the boy?" "Yes." Without a word, the couple answered together. "Lucky boy." The man looked from one to the other. "Good luck to you." He stood up, held out his hand to Samuel. "Here's the address of the orphanage." He held out a piece of paper written in illegible handwriting. I hope you won't regret taking in an orphan." Samuel and Monica said goodbye to the doctor. Each got into his own car and drove to the address. "Follow me." The unfriendly nurse made them put on shoe covers, gowns, and only then led them to the room where the children were sleeping. "Well, Daddy, do you recognize your son?" she asked sternly, stopping in front of the window, behind which the cribs with babies were visible. "That's my son." Without hesitation, Samuel pointed to the rosy-cheeked infant, who, as if sensing a native person, suddenly turned on, studied, and then cried in a demanding, ringing voice. "Look!" The nurse stared at him in amazement, immediately changing her displeased expression to a friendly one. "That's right. It's the first time I've seen such a thing. Come on, Cancer." She opened the door and walked over to the crying baby, gently took it in her arms, and held it out to Monica. "Here you go, Mommy. Do you know how to handle infants? We'll learn." Worriedly, the woman looked at the baby. In the meantime, he calmed down, quieted down, sleeping peacefully. You see, he quieted down at once, it means. The woman smiled. Monica handed the boy to Samuel. "Son, boy, my darling. I've waited so many years for this moment." He was dizzy from the overwhelming feelings. "Have you seen enough?" The nurse spoke sternly. "Let him stay here for the time being, and you go and draw up the documents. Hurry up. Every day without parental affection is a lost day for him." Monica used all her connections. Given the tragic history of the boy's birth, he was transferred to the family without bureaucratic delays. Now all his free time, Samuel spent with the child, and Monica shunned the boy. He reminded her of her husband's infidelity. "Darling," a few days later, guiltily said the newly married father, when the couple put the child to bed, sat in the kitchen in the evening for dinner. "You probably have to go on maternity leave. The baby takes up a lot of time. With him must be constantly engaged. Isn't that too much to ask of me?" The woman squinted irritably at me. "I let you take the child from the orphanage so that he was not an orphan with a living father. But to lock myself in 4 walls for him, I do not intend. I have a job, this clinic, and my baby. I'm as invested in it as you are. I realize I can't ask you to take my son, but you're a woman. You're better than I am at handling him. And I'll work for 2 so that when you get out of maternity leave, you can continue practicing in peace." Monica stared unblinkingly into her coffee cup. "I'm very sorry to you." Samuel broke the silence. "I realize that there is no forgiveness for me, and it will be difficult for me to earn it. But the child is not guilty before you. He's just a baby. Don't you have a little love in your heart for him? I know you're a kind, caring person." Monica had tears in her eyes. "You can hate me, but try to accept the boy." "I can't hate," the woman said sadly. "I've been asking you for a long time. I'll try to love him." "You're right. The boy is really innocent." Family life as it seemed, Samuel fell into a familiar rut, busy at work until late in the evening. He did not notice what it cost his wife to feed, bathe, walk, bring up the child of that other woman. Her image haunted Monica everywhere. In the turn of Adam's head, as they named their son, in his smile, everywhere she could smell the features of her husband's young mistress. The woman was angry that even after his death, the other woman was invisibly present in their home, and her husband still belonged to her. Jealousy was eating away at her soul like rust. It was hiding deep inside, but the corrosion was about to turn it into an unhealing wound. "I realize I am not to blame for betraying my father," she thought, sitting by the crib where the boy slept serenely. "But I can't help it. You are the fruit of treason. I can't get over it. And I can't love you either." Surprisingly quiet, calm child we have growing up, almost no illnesses." Holding his son in his arms, Samuel rejoiced. "Why do you buy so much nonsense for him?" Monica asked irritably, unloading bags with clothes, toys, and goodies. The nursery had already turned into a warehouse. "My son must have the best." Squeezing the smiling child, replied the happy father, "I wanted to talk to you." Monica said glumly, "About what?" "I think he's old enough to be taken care of by a nanny." "I want to go to work." "Monica?" Kissing his wife, Samuel said conciliatingly, "Why do you want to go to work?" "I provide everything for you. The house is full. Stay at home, especially with such a child. He does not cause any trouble. He is now at such an age when mom should be around all the time." "Who and what do I owe?" "What do you know about trouble?" Monica's on a roll. "I'm sick of all this porridge, diapers, snot, tears. I want to be near him all day long. You see nothing. You sit late at work, and I'm alone all the time with this child your mistress gave you." Monica. Samuel stared at his wife as if struck by thunder. "I didn't know you still couldn't forgive me. It's been 2 years. I thought you loved him." "Are you blind, Samuel?" "Thank me for raising your son, but don't ask me to love him too. It's beyond me. I'll never forget whose son he is or what brought him into this world." Irritated, the woman threw the cup into the sink and went into the bedroom. The boy, startled by the loud voices, cried. Samuel carried him to the nursery, put him in his crib, calmed him down as best he could. The boy was silent, looking at his father carefully, as if sympathizing with him. "How come I didn't notice before that Monica was having a hard time with the baby?" Samuel reproached himself. Was she really indifferent to the boy? What a fool I was to think that a woman could forgive adultery to the end. What to do? There's only one way out. He decided, I will urgently look for a nanny. Applying to the agency 3 days later, Samuel brought in a nice older woman. The man chose her among the young competitors, thinking that he could trust her with his boy. Monica plunged back into her old life, stayed late at the clinic, and was happy again. It was as if a stone had fallen from my soul. She confessed to her colleague, "It is not easy to cope with a child alone." The woman did a great job as a nanny, and little Adam became very attached to the old woman, even calling her grandmother. Monica, however, remained indifferent to the baby. Her heart never once ached with tenderness when the child said affectionately, "Mommy, I love you." She never called him son, and he considered her a real mom, waited in his crib in the evenings when she came home from work and kissed him before going to bed, and did not realize that there was no room in her heart for him. "Samuel, you'll forgive me." One day, calling early in the morning, apologizing, Nanny announced, "I'm sick and won't be able to babysit Adam. I have a friend who would be happy to take over for me with the baby. He's such a good boy, it won't be hard for her to handle him." No, the man declined the offer. "I don't need a stranger in the house. We'll manage on our own." He hung up the phone, hesitated, and went to his wife. "Honey, the nanny's sick. It's nothing." Getting ready for work, Monica said nonchalantly, "You can call the agency and they'll send someone else. I wanted to ask you to stay with my son today, but I can't." The woman was indignant. "I'll be busy at work again." "I think so," objected the husband. "One day will not seriously damage our work. It's a day off tomorrow anyway. I'm begging you." He looked pleadingly at Monica. "Just one day. Tomorrow I promise to let you rest." "All right," she agreed, "but tomorrow is all mine." "Thank you." Samuel kissed his wife gratefully. Mommy, let's not go in the car. I want to walk. It's far away on foot." Monica tried to reason with him, but he stubbornly persisted. "I'm not going in the car. I'll walk myself. Let me go." "Excuse me, please." She turned to the driver. He shrugged his shoulders and drove off sharply. No sooner had mother and son to make 100 steps, as there was a squeal of brakes. Then there was a sharp blow, followed by the scraping of metal. The screams of passers-by, the groans of the injured painfully struck the ears. Monica looked around, frantically clutching the boy's hand, and saw that the very car in which she and the child were supposed to go to the clinic was standing and smoking, smashed into a pole. Gawkers had already gathered around. Someone shouted desperately, "Call an ambulance! The man is still alive." Monica stood there, unable to move. She only now realized that she was on the verge of death. "Adam, my son!" With tears in her eyes, Monica said in horror, "If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be alive." She grabbed the child, pressed her breasts and sobbed, "My son, my dear little son." "Kiss him," crying and laughing, she said. "You are with me. You're with Mommy. Mommy loves you. I will never let you be hurt." Without letting the child out of her arms, she dialed the number of the ambulance and hurried home. The doctor arrived, examined the boy, prescribed medicine, and calmed the worried mother. "Monica, how are you here without me?" Samuel's worried voice came from the hallway. "Hush!" Pressed her finger to the woman's lips, leaving the nursery and carefully closing the door behind her. Adam had just fallen asleep. The fever had gone down. "Samuel, I'm sorry," cried Monica, hugging her husband. "How stupid and wicked I was, consumed by my resentment. I almost lost the honor of being a mother, this most precious child in the world." "Monica?" Dazedly, the man stared at her. "What's the matter? I don't understand." "Adam saved me today." And she told him about the accident. "I don't want to leave him for another minute. I'm demanding that the nanny be fired as of tomorrow. I'm going to take care of my son on my own. To hell with the job, as long as the child is alive and well." "Thank you, darling." Hugging and kissing his wife, said Samuel. The boy, surrounded by the care of loving parents, quickly recovered. "Monica?" One evening, a man spoke. "Our boy has a grandfather. It's unfair to deprive a child of a relative, and it's a pity for the old man because he lost his whole family. Let him know he has a grandson growing up. What do you think? Of course, we should look for him at the hospital." At the weekend, they went to visit Cindy's father, and it turned out he'd been moved to a state-run nursing home. Yes, Samuel pulled the car over to the 2-story, dingy building. This building has been in need of major repairs for a long time. Not a single flower in the yard, or even a decorative bush. What a dreary landscape. "Do you smell sauerkraut in here?" Monica asked, pinching her nose. "Looks like something else is burnt. How can you live in such conditions?" The man was indignant. "In the rooms and wards, all the plaster has peeled off. Is it impossible to hang normal light fixtures? The bulb is still burning under the ceiling, and this is the XFI century. I would have fired the nurses and orderlies a long time ago because it is impossible to breathe from the smell of sweat, urine, and medicines." In the corridors wandered like shadows inhabitants, slovenly dressed, little talkative. They stared at the visitors indifferently, staring at them with empty, lifeless eyes. "Hello," said Monica cautiously, addressing a man who was sitting in a wheelchair, scrutinizing something outside the window. The bed was covered with a blanket in an old, frayed comforter cover. At the sound of an unfamiliar voice, the man turned slowly and looked at the intruders with an unexpectedly lively look in his brown, Cindy-like eyes. My name is Monica." "Samuel." The man held out his hand in greeting. The old man shook it silently. "And this is your grandson Adam, Cindy's son." "Wrong," the old man said in a creaky voice. "I can't have a grandson. My daughter died in childbirth." "Yes, she died, but we found the boy. He's alive and well." Monica pushed her son forward. "Look closely, he looks just like Cindy." The man put on his glasses with the broken lenses and began to look at the child. The wrinkles on the old man's face began to smooth out, and finally he smiled with difficulty and said, "Our breed. Look at those eyes. What is your name?" He turned to the baby. "Adam," the boy answered shyly, "and I'm Grandpa James." The old man gently took his grandson's hand. "So we've met. You don't come here anymore." Suddenly the old man looked up at the guests. "It's not right for a child to see me like this. Thank you for letting me see my grandson. I won't want to die now." The couple looked at each other meaningfully. "James," Monica spoke up, "we will not leave you here. We will transfer you to another hospital, where you will be well cared for, and we will visit you." "Thank you if that's the case," the man said. His shoulders shook in silent sobs. Tears came to Monica's eyes. "I thought I was going to die here alone. We promise we won't leave you," Samuel assured him. "You'll see your grandson grow up. I'm looking at him." The old man smiled. "And I see Cindy. She was the same silent, very kind, helpful, worked hard. So God took her away, and she ruined her health." The couple returned home dejected. They sincerely felt sorry for the man, who, by the will of fate, remained in need of no one. They had already decided for themselves that they would not abandon him. They would create all conditions so that he did not need anything and quietly lived out his life. After putting their son to bed, they sat next to each other and talked for a long time. "I am very happy," Monica said. "Our house has really become a full bowl now. We have a favorite son, our own and the best. Next to me," she confessed, looking at her husband with a look of tenderness. "A man I adore. Our clinic is thriving." "And me," kissing her, said Samuel, "the best wife in the world. And I don't need anything more in my life."
Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. Yes, there was a crush, even a feeling like love, but nothing serious. He went on studying, falling in love, dating. Now he was interning at a psychiatric clinic in their town. Yes, they had talked the most horrible and heartbreaking, up to the fact that their orderlies and doctors have fun with mentally ill beauty. But no one could prove it. "What do you want me to do?" Michael asked his old friend Benjamin, who told him all this. "Do. I really have to go over the border, as my grandmother says. But you know, you'd have to sell the last of it. And what would I do in that prosperous Europe? And you realize their methods and ours are probably incompatible. So that's where it stands. I'm already used to the realities of our medicine and psychiatry, in particular, as well as methods of therapy. What's a handful of pills? I'd rather have a shot in the vein, or even for some freaks in general, orbital lobotomy. You're a bloodthirsty Benjamin. I'm way ahead of you. Aha. That's why I went into dentistry, so I could yank my patient's teeth with a vengeance." And the guy was soon making a grimace that made them both laugh. A healthy laugh. Crooked faces like first graders. It was normal. In their practice, doctors, they are such and black humor that help them endure the specifics and difficulties of the job. Often the lack of weekends when there is no one on shifts. And you do all the work for 3 people so you cannot die long, or even go crazy and become like his future charges patients in a psychiatric clinic. Yeah, Ethan, I probably should have chosen dentistry like you. and my grandmother insisted that my senior year I choose dentistry or gynecology. But that's just not my thing, you know. I see, Michael, then you'll have to go to me for dental care and one of our girls for gynecology. I'll give you a headache. All right, buddy, I gotta go home. I gotta get ready for my first day of private dentistry tomorrow. I'm on the phone for now. Michael nodded, and after shaking hands, they parted ways. He had to go to his mental hospital tomorrow. Then, it was worth it to come home early, to pack a bag, and for once, not to sit in front of the TV until night, to sleep. Already at home he had dinner and brewed himself a fragrant tea. Michael sat down at the computer, an old computer brought from Europe, but still capable of much computer brought to him under the order from a friend of his grandmother for his birthday. When Michael was in his second year of study, and the guy's joy was unbounded. Grandma, this is a real treasure. Luckily, the guy had no limit. And now he sat down at the computer, started the system, and connected the internet. Yeah, the internet is power. The ability to communicate with the world, to learn a lot. And now he decided to keep his own electronic diary of his internship at work, including everything he saw and heard, what methods were used, and what the doctors achieved. Maybe I'll even write a dissertation based on this diary. Not many secrets this asylum hides. Is this your institution for the mentally ill? Grandma came into the room and put a tray with a huge tea and sweet spoons on the table. Yes, Grandma, I'm thinking of keeping a diary. Maybe I'll see something interesting, and there are strange things going on in your almshouse. Grandma, do you know something? Tell me, please. I know something. Betty sat down on her grandson's bed and thought about it. That sometimes I see girls and young women in weird outfits, but they also have ribbons in their hair. Grandma, well, the outfits are ordinary, hospital outfits. Maybe some suits came from humanitarian aid. And the ribbons? Maybe one of the nurses got sick. No, grandson, something else. Outfits. Grandma thought for a moment, and then said, you know, like in adult movies, a dress, short stockings, and netting. Somehow the guy raised an eyebrow in surprise. Strangely, he had passed by this place many times, but he hadn't really paid attention to the patients. His grandmother, on the other hand, did. She looked at her grandson carefully, and then continued. And about the ribbons, you know, they're weird too. How can I explain it to you? Well, what caught your attention? Just tell me the first thing you noticed. The guy felt like a detective, but he was already wondering what his astute grandmother had seen. Betty pressed her lips together and then gave out. They're red with glitter. So what? Grandma, it's bright and beautiful. I guess crazy people like that. I don't know about that. You know, in my time, so to speak, pre-revolutionary ribbons like this were stuffed in the hair of girls of easy virtue in brothels. And here, they'd walk around like that, and they'd be highlighted with ribbons, so to speak. It's not human. You shouldn't make the poor and disadvantaged look like the poor and disadvantaged. Ugh. And also such ribbons flew hair only young and beautiful. Grandma, you're my Agatha Christie. Really, how many times have I walked by and just not paid attention? It's impossible not to pay attention to such an inferential outfit. All right. Well, I take what you said, and I'll pay attention. Maybe I'll uncover some kind of world conspiracy. And the guy smiled his beautiful smile, but he didn't know how close he was to the truth. This hospital was a place for the mildly insane. As the doctors would say, those who didn't require enhanced confinement. That's why the patients could walk by themselves in the equipped yard of the institution, awarded with a fence. But the guy would learn about it later, when he would encounter the most horrible and disgusting thing that could happen in his professional life. Monday turned out to be surprisingly sunny and similar, especially after a night of threatening rain and rain that walled the city. Yes, Michael thought. Waking up in the night and looking out the window to rain like that could wash away the whole city and my psychotic charges with it. But the morning was clear and sunny, and there was practically nothing left from the traces of rain, except for broken branches and leaves on the ground. "Yeah, it's a lot of work for a janitor," the boy said aloud. "That's right," said the janitor of the Sheck grandmother Sophia, who has been cleaning the yard. "Since 5 o'clock, she's already cleaned so much, and still waving and waving the broom. Good luck to you." And the guy, throwing his backpack on his shoulder, went to his new place of practice. On the approach to the psychiatric clinic, the guy decided to walk around it a bit, on the other side, so that he could see the place where their patients usually strolled, and to pay attention to what his grandmother was talking about yesterday. Indeed, there were several girls walking in the courtyard, dressed in very revealing outfits with brightly colored ribbons in their hair. But the strangest thing was not only the orderlies, but also the head doctor and his 2 deputies were standing aside. They looked at their charges and smilingly discussed something. And the head doctor was looking at Kathy, a new patient who had been brought in a few days ago, a victim of hypnosis, or rather a failed experiment of a psychopath. A doctor who practiced his trance technique on her. Yeah, the guy thought. Such things happen in the practice of doctors. As the grief doctor told the law enforcers, this method he tried to muffle her inner hunger. What kind of hunger? One of the investigators asked the doctor. Sexual hunger. She was just obsessed with men, always wanting sex. I tried to bring her back to a normal life, although so far I had to cure her with this method by my refinement, to cure her. Or maybe it was just you decorating her like that. I was saving her from herself. The doctor was sure he was doing good. But, as Michael thought to himself, having heard the girl's story and the doctor's testimony, he was no less crazy than his victim, whom he had turned into a vegetable. Yes, thought the new orderly from one prison, or rather office, psycho, experimenter to the clinic. Or rather, a study, a psycho, an experimenter in a clinic where she was looked upon as a subject of pleasures and possible molestation. Well, if you've got your eye on her, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on you, Kathy. Now I realize my grandmother was right about something. You don't dress patients like that. This isn't a catwalk, it's a clinic. Michael took out a pack of cigarettes and smoked, even though he'd only dabbled before. As his downstairs neighbor, Uncle Benjamin, who'd been in the camps for years, would say, he was translating product, also a colorful type. The guy remembered about him. But in reality, as he was an Urka and a political prisoner in the past owned such a 3-room apartment. Michael even once asked him jokingly, who will get your chambers and jacuzzi? To which he replied, squint your eyes at him. Don't be jealous. I won this house with my teeth. And the neighbor showed his not too healthy strong teeth. Don't look at my teeth. I can still do a lot. And the apartment is my mother's inheritance, not the state's. Believe me. Uncle Benjamin, but you don't have children. Who told you I don't? I had a daughter, but she died in childbirth. So there's only one beloved grandson. But why doesn't he visit you? Where is he? Do you even know? Because he lives abroad. My daughter married an Arab. She fell in love and went to the Emirates. To tell the truth, she lived like a cheese in butter. I wouldn't give her that. But I guess you have to pay for everything. And I guess she paid the price when she gave birth. I'm sorry, Uncle Benjamin, I really didn't know. Hold on. There's a grandson. Have you even seen him? Yes, he came to my daughter's funeral. To her grave, to be exact. She converted to Islam and was buried on the day she died. So I only got the grave. I'm sorry. You're welcome. My grandson's growing up and my daughter's husband calls me and shows me his grandson via video link. He keeps asking me to come over, but I can't leave the house. Yes, and here I am among neighbors as my own and smiling through tears. Neighbor went to his apartment. Michael stood smoking under the fence net and did not understand why he remembered him. But fate would once again bring the neighbors together in this case, albeit in a very unusual way. And now Michael stood smoking, looking, and could not make a step and continue his way. "Maybe throw it to hell under his nose," said the guy. And then he almost jumped. On his shoulder lay the hand of William, the lead doctor, clinic, and supervisor of Michael's practice, who had seen the guy get off at the bus stop, how he had smoked, stopping under an old lime tree. And as he watched a group of paramedics walking in the courtyard of patients of doctors, laughing them among themselves, probably at some oily joke. "Who are you gonna leave? Certainly not the practice at our fun and games place, but I think you're overdoing it on the fun and games. No, it's definitely that kind of black doctor humor. It is so, sort of so humor." The doctor smiled and took his ward under his arm and led him towards the psychiatric hospital, slowly but surely moving him towards the horrors that were going on inside its walls. The doctor had already made the decision to either involve Michael in his games or simply deprive him of his sanity if he did not agree to participate. Why him? It's simple. Michael is a new man in their collective one not so long ago, by chance, and he's strong for his age, plus handsome. Here is such a boy handsome, which is exactly suitable for filming spicy movies. Already in the clinic, the head doctor Noah and William took him through all the buildings, floors, and wards. Yes, the views are not the best, and emotions are not the brightest. Why should he be surprised, though? He knew where he was going. Michael was tormented by his grandmother's reasoning, but he knew if he asked that question directly, he'd be laughed at. But at the most, he'd get suspended. And the guy would never find out. Noah asked Michael over tea at the resident. There are all sorts of rumors about this clinic, in particular, mystical rumors. What do you have to say about that? "Oh, Michael, you're a medical student, but you talk like a philology student who wants folklore. Or are you afraid of the ghost of the old empress or mother? The mother superior who drowned a truck in our pond at night. There's even a pond here." The boy's amazement was unparalleled. How long has he lived here in this town? I knew of clinics in the neighborhood, but the fact that there's also a pond. Remember the old movie about the Three Musketeers? Well, we have a lively pond just like that. It was organized by the previous head doctor. His wife worked as a landscape designer. So they set it up. We have a lily pond here. It's beautiful. There were fish swimming in it, but I guess our climate didn't suit them. They died out over the winter. But our patients don't care whether they're fish or lilies. And Ethan, an orderly with huge fists and a face resembling a tango arena, laughed as Michael's laughter made him shudder, and the doctors simply did not pay attention to him. And why do they tolerate such people in the clinic? Although on the other hand, there are some violent people who can't be subdued without physical force. Yeah, but Ethan's rudeness sometimes got to Michael, as did the thought of having to work with someone like that. "Ethan, you show Michael to your office, where he can change his clothes, leave his things in the lockers and all that. He's only here for a couple months, so to speak, a couple months internship. But it's still got to be determined." Ethan nodded his head and waved his huge fist at Michael. Michael didn't show his displeasure. Let it be. A couple of months could be tolerated. And then he was promised to be taken to the second city as a staff psychiatrist, so he didn't worry about it too much. Michael obediently went down to the basement with Ethan and went to the very back of the clinic. Here, the orderlies had set up a room for a locker room and a kind of sports corner where you can hit a punching bag and play chess and dominoes. Don't be shy. Michael, take any locker that's not open. We have a lot of open seats right now, so let's get settled in. Why do so few people want to work at the clinic? Michael started asking questions from afar. I mean, who wants to hang out with a psycho? A lot of people think of it as a contagion. Being a psycho too. I just don't know any other job. Although at one time, just like you, I studied medicine. What did you study for? An orderly, that's what I studied. And my uncle put me to work here. My uncle. He's Noah. You've seen him. He's our chief of medicine. Good acquaintances, the boy thought, but he didn't say anything. Michael changed his clothes and began to get ready for his shift. The shift went relatively smoothly, and the next morning, the guy threw his backpack on his shoulders and left the clinic building. The sun was shining brightly, and there was nothing to portend any trouble, and all the things he had changed his mind about yesterday. Michael, it seemed like a fairy tale or fantasy. But really, what kind of fairy tales are fairy tales? We live in our developed world with computers, cameras on every corner. Even if there was something going on here, it would have been made public a long time ago. Michael, good morning. William called out to the guy and extended his hand to greet him and got straight to the point. How was your shift? Smoke. I don't smoke. Thank you. Yesterday it was just a dalliance, but the shift. Thank you. Everything went smoothly. William, can I make a personal request if I'm not interrupting something more important? Sure. Yes, of course. Anything I can do. Could you show me that pond you told me about yesterday? Wow. I guess you got caught up in the story last night. Come on. It's in the backyard. I'll show you around. I gotta be honest, you can't see it from the street. It took me a while to find it myself. It's so hidden, it's creepy. Is this place really inhabited? The center of Izhevsk. The doctor looked at him with a slight chuckle and said nothing, but waved his hand and led him deep into the park area of the hospital. Yeah, it's a bit of a wilderness, and that the most strange noise of cars from the street was not heard, although the clinic itself was located at the crossroads of quite busy central city roads. How quiet is it? And strangely enough, you can't hear much traffic from the road. Yes, you're right, Michael. You've noticed it's quiet. And here's the twig itself, and the head doctor spread the branches with his hands and let the boy go ahead. It's beautiful. Before, Michael opened a pond, laid out of stones behind burned black lilies, around which willows grew. And what was the most amazing thing? There were several statues in antique style of girls, hunting or carrying jugs on their shoulders. He had not seen such statues for a long time. Oh, it's beautiful. And notice the angle and the shot. You could even make a movie. What kind of horror movie have you seen in our cellars? There's no such thing as a cellar. Why? There are some. Yes, imagine that. And they lead to the local Cathedral of the Transfiguration, which is across the street from us. Are these cellars or cellars? I don't know. They lead to the monastery, and they say the monks at our clinic have the right people. And all because it wouldn't occur to anyone to look for a healthy person in a mental institution. Then there's been some kind of collapse in some places. Now these passages are impassable. That's for sure. No one's gonna come in here willingly. And then he noticed on the opposite bank the figure of a girl in a racy outfit. Kathy, he remembered her, because she had been brought here on the day when he had come to see the head doctor and applied for an internship at this clinic. The girl herself was not in the state she was in at the time. She was screaming at the doctors that the psychiatrist wanted to kill her. She's hearing voices and everything. That Kathy suffers from inner voices and a hypertrophied sex drive. Well, that's what her previous doctor said. Who knows? So far, the girl hasn't said a word. Why is she dressed like that? Short dress, fishnet stockings, ribbon in her hair. You know, Michael, it's one of my methods of letting the patient choose what they want. And by the way, where'd you get that outfit? That's a good question. Like many theatrical costumes, it was left to us by a theater. Exactly the theater. The director was jailed for some dark deeds, he and his wife. And the actors just ran away. And since the theater was near us, it's not a waste. and they were all dressed like royalty. Yes, imagining you as Henry Valois or Peter the Great. Michael, you're joking. But by the way, we had a wonderful carnival night here on New Year's Eve. And there was even a story about us in the paper. I hope it wasn't in a good context that a disguised Napoleon was walking around town claiming to be the real chief medical officer. No, we're all understanding people with a sense of humor. So we just hung around the Christmas tree. That one over there, by the way, by the entrance. And you know, people even took pictures with us on New Year's Eve. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you for the tour. I'm gonna go home and get some sleep. Thursday again for 24 hours. Michael, don't try too hard. You can't do all the work. You're a young guy. I nodded my head. But I thought to myself, no, I'm going to get you out of this. I think you're hiding something. Dear head doctor, but you don't need to know that. I had dinner tonight and sat down at the computer. Michael quickly made the first entries in his diary and then began to look for information about the local clinic. And indeed, there was a lot of information about it. Strangely enough, there was a lot of information about it, and with a very negative connotation. Murders, suicides, and strange deaths of both patients and doctors. Yes, there was a lot to work on and a lot to find out. But it was Kathy that bothered him the most. And he thought to himself, why not keep a sneaky eye on her room? The girl herself. Not without reason the head doctor was looking at her with such olive eyes. Grandma, the boy called out to his grandmother. Why did you shout like that? You won't let me watch my favorite TV show. What did you want? Grandma, I saw a girl at the clinic today. She was a victim of an incompetent hypnotist and suffered as a result. But that's not the point. She was wearing the outfit you mentioned, short dress, stockings, and a sash. Not surprising. One of your executives must have had their eye on her. I mean, she's new. She's a young girl too. I take it. So you're going to steal her? No, Grandma, I just want to keep an eye on her room. It's on the first floor, so it won't be a problem. To do anything, you have to have proof. That's what I'm required to do. Really, Michael, I'm old. I'm not going to play Sherlock Holmes with you. I'm more of a Mrs. Hudson. Grandma, that's not what I mean. Just cover for me in front of Mom. I'm gonna go over to the clinic tonight, stake out the windows, so to speak. I found a military A in Grandpa's closet. Okay, if anything, I'll tell Mom you're home already asleep. She's on call today anyway, so she won't be home. But you're my grandson, please. Don't get into any trouble. Okay, Michael nodded his head and poked the old lady on the cheek. He went back to his computer. What's going on at the clinic? How was your shift? The old woman was still interested in how true or not the rumors were. The rumors about the asylum. Yeah, Grandma, it's okay. I told you it was nothing like that. No, it's not. Our head doctor showed me the old pond on the grounds today, the one with the black lilies. Grandma didn't tell me about it. I went there and saw it because the wife of the former head doctor was my friend, and the pond itself is her creation. But the doctor didn't tell you that in the same pond they found the wife of the former one drowned. The guy shook his head, looked at his grandmother in surprise, but there's knee-deep water, and that's it. And this is the strangest thing. Her body was lying with her head in the water. She was submerged in the water, but her arms and legs were lying flat along her torso. They took a sturdy, adequate soldier and put her face down. That's all. And then they found water from the pond in his lungs. No signs of violence on the body. If that's what you're asking, it's odd that she came in, lay down, and swallowed the water to death. Drowned of her own volition. The guy was being sarcastic. But looking at the expression on his grandmother's face, he immediately faltered. Betty did not tolerate unnecessary words and jokes, and therefore immediately warned her grandson. Yes, Michael, death is strange. But if she did it herself, then she had a reason. And maybe even her own husband is the same as your current boss's overbearing. There's nothing to cure them. Maybe, under the old doctor, he and his brothers also had fun with innocent girls, and his wife found out and drowned them both. So, what of it? Or maybe who drowned them? But really, she won't become a ghost of a ghost, will she? Maybe she wouldn't. But believe me, there's something scary going on out there. And I'll tell you honestly, this new girl isn't worth the danger she's bringing upon herself. Trust me. The Brotherhood of Doctors, it's like that. Everyone protects each other. And even if they do something to her, that you can get to the bottom of it. But understand, a doctor will not testify against a doctor. So get on your nerves and leave her in there. At least I'll get her out and save her that way. All right. Michael, don't yell. I hear you. I accept your position. But I'm trying to warn you. You're putting yourself in a lot of danger. I understand all that. That's why I'm telling you where I'm going and what I intend to do. Betty nodded and stood up, heading for the door. She was worried about her grandson, but she realized she couldn't keep the young and hot guy away. So the woman simply stood on the doorstep and turned and said to Michael, "What if you take Uncle Benjamin, our neighbor from the second floor, to help you? He's old, but he's lean. And with his criminal record, he'd be a big help. I'll think about it. But it's not a bad idea. Although I'll tell you right away, I'll have to see for myself, do some recon, and then I'll tell him what's going on. Even if I go to him now, what can I say? Uncle, Benjamin is there in the clinic raping women and many other things. And he'll tell me. Prove it. Just words. And I don't really believe it all myself. Just because a place is weird and old doesn't mean you can't ring all the bells. Yeah, there's too many girls. There's too many crazy people. And there's too many masquerades. But it's all right." And the grandmother left the room, closing the door a little behind her. Michael leaned back in his chair and thought for a moment. Uncle Benjamin is a criminal, but the grandmother is right. His experience and his nose for crime might help him. And an extra set of hands and eyes can always help. But first, you have to go and see for yourself, and then you can go to your neighbor. All right, let's get ready. Michael threw a flashlight and a bottle of water into his backpack. Binoculars with good German optics can take a camera. What for? Basically, there's a cell phone. You can take video and photos with it. Okay, that's fine for the first time. Anyway, I'm not going to go in there. And throwing it on his shoulders, Michael went out into the corridor and began to study. The sounds Betty came out of his room and looked at his offspring carefully. You're coming. Yes, Grandma. Don't worry. I've got the phone, but don't call. I'll call you if I need to. In the meantime, lock it up. I think I'll be on the train in a couple of hours. 20 minutes to get there. An hour and a half and back. 20 minutes. So look, it'll be 3 hours. All right. Grandson, but please be careful. If anything happens to me, your mother will rip my head off. Michael smiled at his favorite person and kissed her. He went outside. It was getting dark. What's so surprising? After work, he washed up, then ate and slept, and now full of strength can and observe. The guy smiled, thought to himself that he should have gone not to the doctor, but probably to the investigators. Here is a confirmation of his words. A patrol car passed by and lit up the road with flashing beacons, but it alarmed the guy. No, not the car itself, not the flashing lights. It was the fact that the policeman stopped it around the corner and got out quietly, covering the door. They slammed it shut, as usual, quietly slipped through the hole in the fence of the psychiatric clinic, and went just as quietly, whispering among themselves. Wow. The cops are also in business. And the young medic's bewilderment had no limit. Did these columns, as his grandmother would say, come here too? Wow. Now, it's not just medical malpractice anymore. It's a group of gangs. And that's what he's encountered in practice. Come on. Maybe he just made a mistake, and the police came here on a signal, so to speak, to check what's going on here. But still, these two were acting weird, uncharacteristic. Michael slowly went in the direction of the secret eye. In the fence jumped in the chassis, hiding behind the dense vegetation, and abundantly growing along this fence. That was a plus right now, and it wasn't exactly a starry night. So the guy slowly crept toward the ominous, overhanging park clinic. This 3-story old pre-revolutionary building was an eyesore in the city. It was going to be demolished long ago, moving the facility to the outskirts. But apparently, it wasn't worth it for the high-ranking officials to go there in search of hidden pleasures. "Come on, come in here," quietly said one policeman, and let the other one inside. The basement. Wow, they got the basement entrance open. I wonder who's on shift today. An old orderly with a long history of alcohol abuse, or Liam. Another one of the orderlies with a huge fist. When Michael himself asked about the door to the basement and the padlock, the head doctor secretly smiled and said, "This is the entrance to our basement paradise. And is it like growing marijuana there?" Michael decided to make a joke, but I guess the joke didn't work. The doctor looked at him sideways and said it wasn't pot. It was something else. But it's too early for him to know. Everything will show and tell later. And now they just let outsiders into this forbidden paradise. Maybe they are part-time security guards. Michael chuckled under his nose and began to approach the clinic building even more quietly. The windows of the wards on the first floor glowed with a dim light. It was the way the duty lights burned. And the light itself was enough to see what was going on in the wards. The guy intuitively approached the window of the room of the new patient Kathy, and from surprise, almost dumbfounded on the spot. Guy saw her sitting on the bed, dressed in a short school drill dress and with bows in her hair. Yeah, the guy almost whistled in surprise. And apparently, the girl heard his exclamation and looked out the window. Michael intercepted her gaze for a second. He was devastated. Apparently, she'd been pre-sedated with sedatives. But at the same time, there was a silent plea for help. But then, Liam and the doctor in charge entered the room, and the boy sat down instantly so as not to be seen. Michael sat under the window and listened intently to what was going on in the room itself. He heard the footsteps of 2 men and the creaking of a bed. Then the words of the head doctor. "Hello, Kathy. You're already dressed as well as you can be. Now let's go down to the basement with me and Liam. You'll find a lot of interesting things there." The basement where the 2 policemen went. Apparently, they had some sort of organized pleasure nook down there. And that's where they took her, drugged her with psychotropics. But what to do? The guy quietly sank to the ground and put his hands around his head. What to do? What to do? And then the front door creaked and Michael squeezed into the ground. 3 men came out of them and headed towards the basement. Good night was dark, and the yard of the clinic was not illuminated. Therefore, he simply was not noticed. But only the girl turned back, looked in his direction, and cried. Tears rolled silently down her face. Michael heard Noah begin to quietly soothe the girl and told the orderly, "Liam at the school, to her in the basement for another dose of sedative. We didn't want her to wake up at the right moment, and the chief of police wasn't happy with his new doll." "Yeah, sure, Noah. Let's get her in and give her a quick shot." And the trio began to make their way down to the basement. Michael had one single desire: to break into the basement and snatch Kathy out of the hands of doctors and cops. But he realized how impossible that would be. No, he was not intimidated by the company, the doctors and the cops, to do their dark deeds. But he realized they'd just smash him there. And that would be it. And no one will know where his grave is. Call the militia. What will he say there? The head doctor and a policeman raping a mentally ill patient won't believe him. And even if they do, what's next? But the brigade will arrive on a call. And what? Nothing. If the police come to such costume parties, it means that the management is aware of it, and at least the case will be closed. At the most, they can either kill him in the same basement and bury him here or put him in jail for something. I mean, even if it's for abusing Kathy. So think, Michael, think. Maybe you're imagining things. Yeah. And the cops are here for nothing. But at that very moment, the basement door opened and a policeman came running out. "Vasia," he shouted, "I've been away for a couple of hours. There's an emergency at the police station, but I'll be back later. Leave me that girl for later." And the policeman rushed to the car. The guy heard the engine roar and the tires skid across the sand. But the strangest thing was that from the cellar, no one answered him, and no one had ever closed the door. It wasn't locked. It's called come in. Whoever wants in and whoever wants out. Whoever wants in and whoever wants out. Michael rushed to the cellars and started to go down the stairs, listening to every sound. But he heard nothing, neither footsteps nor any other sounds. There were supposed to be at least 4 people down there, and they certainly weren't singing lullabies. But maybe it was for the best. The boy opened the cellar door and slipped inside. The corridor was sparsely lit, and there was a pantry open right next to the entrance. The guy peeked into it just in case, to make sure there was no one there. And in case of emergency, he could hide in this room. Yes, there are shelves and bears in principle a place for a hiding place. But at that very moment, at the end of the corridor, footsteps were heard. It was the guest of the night police and the head doctor. The boy immediately recognized the figure of his superior. They were talking quietly about something, and as they approached, the boy could hear what they were talking about. What he heard made him not just overcome, but terrified to the point of truly experiencing fear not only for the poor girl, but for his own life. "Noah, thank you for the welcome. But you see, the warden's gone. We've had an emergency at the council since this morning. The commission's here, so we're saving Kathy for dessert, so to speak. Yes, you understand correctly. Everything is normal. No excesses or incidents. No one is interested in anything. Yes, in principle, everything's fine. Except we got a new orderly coming in for an internship. We didn't apply for the internship, but he did. So, they're interested in the job, and the clinic in particular. Why are our patients dressed so oddly? Of course, like you said, it's all been blamed on the tour and the theater we had a year ago, and then they disbanded it. But I don't think he believed it. So what do you suggest? Maybe we should press him a little so he doesn't stick his nose where it doesn't belong. No, I think I can handle it. And you know, it's normal to be questioned about our clinic." Michael listened and realized it was about him. His breath cleared, and he even found it hard to breathe. And as luck would have it, the couple stopped near the open door to the storeroom, where the new employee was hiding behind the racks with his colleagues. The policeman looked into the storeroom, but seeing nothing, quietly said to the head doctor, "Okay, Noah, let's postpone our sit-downs for the time being. Lie down while holding this girl. The chief liked her, and the school drill outfit matches. We'll be there in a couple days. In the meantime, we'll be in touch. Call me if you need anything." The head doctor didn't say anything. He escorted the guest outside and returned a couple minutes later. Michael, all these minutes, which seemed like hours to him, sat and did not breathe, although his heart was pounding frantically and was ready to jump out of his chest. And this breathing and heartbeat, it seemed to the lad to be striking a bell in the silence. But there was nothing he could do about it. The boy heard the head doctor pass by his cell and head deep into the corridor, muttering something to himself. After a few minutes, he looked out of the door and, seeing no one, slipped out into the street. He breathed in the cool air of the night and took a few deep breaths in and out and began to make his way toward the dead vine. At the fence, Michael walked slowly, not even looking around, being in slight shock at everything he saw. What could be going on in there? What did I see there? Nothing. Just heard the doctor and the cops talking about something. But I don't know what they were talking about. Maybe it's some kind of videotape as part of a police investigation. The guy was trying to drown out the thoughts that kept popping into his head, and he'd heard of costume parties like this a long time ago. But to have minds devoid of girls and women take part in it, there was no such thing. All right, who am I kidding? Trying to fool? There's definitely something going on in that basement that's scary and illegal. And it's got to stop. Poor girls. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. He'd have to go to Uncle Benjamin. That old bastard will surely tell him what to do, won't he? How? He'll help. The guy did not notice how he reached the house, how he went up to the floor and opened the doors with his keys, closing them quietly. Michael leaned against the wall and from powerlessness and experience simply slid to the floor. Grandma came out of the room at that moment and flicked the light switch. The bright light blinded the guy. And realized, "Grandma, why are you awake?" He tried to look normal, but apparently the expression on his face told the old lady everything. "Why? You want me to tell you why? What happened? Tell me. You're white as chalk." "Grandma, I don't want to. I wish I was like this right now. Come on, go take a shower to wash off the negativity. Then we'll go to the table. I spared a cutlet, and I'll pour you one of my own." The guy did not argue, and simply went to the bathroom, pulled off all the clothes and scattered them on the way. When in the bathroom heard the sound of water, Betty collected the guy's things and threw them into the washing machine. "No dirt to lay around. I'll wash everything tomorrow." When Michael came out of the bathroom, there was a late dinner and a bottle of tincture on the table. The woman poured him a shot and handed it to him without saying anything. Nor did the grandson ask anything. He took it quietly and knocked it over. All at once. "Take the cutlets, mashed potatoes, salad. Let's eat." The guy sat down at the table without saying a word. He poured himself a second shot of olive and tipped it just as quietly and started on the homemade cutlets. He ate and thought, should he tell his grandmother of his suspicions? But Betty was not so foolish, as modern young people might think. I take it Kathy had gotten into the local psychiatric brothel and was simply being kept on psychotropic drugs. Michael chewed and nodded his head and simply couldn't drop a word. Not because he was eating, but because he was choked with emotion, and he didn't want to upset his grandmother. But his grandmother was not stupid and immediately realized everything as soon as his grandson entered the house. "You know, grandmother, there are not only doctors involved. There are also the police, and most likely, the very top. They came here today, twirled around and left. It's like an emergency in the department. So they didn't stay the night. And this girl." And then Michael shook from the experience. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he couldn't stop. How could they do that? It's not just they're renting prostitutes, who know what they're in for and where they're going. And all this with mentally ill women. How so? "Michael, I get it. That's why I told you not to go there, but you wouldn't listen. And now you've got to figure out how to deal with it. You're not going to go to the police. You said it yourself. The whole chain of command is tied up. So what do we do? You can't go with a machine gun against everyone. You don't have to do it yourself. I told you. Go talk to our neighbor tomorrow. You know, the one below us, Benjamin. He's a thief. He's old school, I think. Plus, he's got a grudge against the police. So if he doesn't help, he'll certainly tell me what to do and who to turn to." The guy nodded his head and poured himself another olive. He drank and couldn't taste it. Slowly he digested all that he had seen and heard, thinking how he should proceed. But Babushkina's spit turned out to be quite strong, and already in half an hour the guy was pecking his nose. "Go to bed, my sorrow. Tomorrow mother will come. and you with red eyes sleep. And then I'll cook for you for the evening. Pour the stuffed cabbage. With all this good stuff you'll go and ask your neighbor for advice. Grandma, thank you. I'm going. Michael only laid his head on the pillow, as he was immediately dreaming. He slept and did not dream. Though emotions so and so raged inside him. But apparently the young body could handle giving his head a rest. Indeed, he slept until almost lunchtime. And when he got up at 12 o'clock, he found no one home in the kitchen. All he caught was a note from his mother. Say, lunch on the table from his grandmother, stuffed cabbage in her purse, cash in the fridge in the back. We had a snack in Russia too. Michael went down to the second floor and called Uncle Benjamin's apartment. He didn't open the door right away, but he wouldn't let the guys in. Michael, do you want something? Uncle Benjamin, my grandmother gave you Golutsov, and he pointed to the bottle. And then I'd like to talk to you about a sensitive matter. The old one stomped on the doorstep. He liked Betty's stuffed cabbage, and it wasn't nice to say no to a neighbor. It wasn't proper. But he had guests he didn't want Michael to meet. The guy heard he had a stranger as a guest, maybe the lady of his heart, and he's here with his own problems. Uncle Benjamin, if I'm interrupting, I'm sorry, but can I come back later? Yes. Michael, I'm sorry, guest, come back at 8 o'clock. And here's Betty. A special thank you. Her stuffed cabbage is a work of art. Benjamin nodded his head and closed the door gently. Yeah, the stuffed cabbage and cash came in handy. There would be something to feed and drink an old friend. He came unexpectedly, and frankly speaking, the skull's visit surprised Benjamin and made him a little wary. And what does the skull need from old Kogan? And a vagabond? Yeah, maybe our old friend stomping on the doorstep for starters. Hopefully, the doorstep isn't where friends have a business conversation. Oh no, sure, come on in. Except there's nothing to buy. But I did not come here to eat. The restaurant will not feed. If you want strong tea with your girlfriends, I won't refuse. You owe me tea and my girlfriends. When Benjamin went to put the kettle on, the doorbell rang. It was Michael, but not the landlord. Neither did his guests know about it. Both were wary. But since Benjamin had long since retired and felt no guilt, he boldly opened the door. After talking to his neighbor for a few minutes, he returned to the room with the fools and the cash. Oh, I see the delivery service is working perfectly, joked the skull. Yes, in the face of the upstairs neighbor. He came in to talk some business. So I brought this to butter the old man up. But I asked him to wait till tonight. In the meantime, try these homemade stuffed cabbage. By the way, and cherry is a delight. The men sat down at the table, poured a shot glass each, and, having drunk, had a snack. And how not to drink, because it would make the conversation easier. Benjamin looked at the old thief in the law and quietly asked what brought you to me. You didn't just come 10 years after our last case. Yes, I did. And for good reason. I'll tell you right off the bat. I was put in charge of this town not that long ago, but I think you already know that. Now, I've heard rumors that young girls and women have been going missing in this town for the last few years. Well, you can blame it on anything, although all roads lead to your local mental institution. You know what I'm getting at? Yeah, I've heard bad things about her too, Benjamin said, and poured another round of shots. But how can I tell you, Skull? They're just rumors. You know, you can't do anything without proof. That's true. But in addition to the fact that young girls have been brought into this almshouse and treated for whatever reason, the cops have been frequenting it in recent months. They probably set up a brothel there together with the doctors and have fun there. And how not to party? It's a hell of a roof. Skull, are you sure? The old watcher nodded his head and threw a piece of fool into his mouth. He poured himself and his friend a shot for cream. What was there to say? Home-cooked food, still, that delicacy and luxury. And he, as an old thief who had spent most of his life in colonies and prisons, understood that. But that's not what we're talking about now. The daughter of a street. Petersburg Authority figure is missing. And so far, all roads lead here. You see, Alex's daughter is missing. Well, you remember him. He was on my team. Then he retired. He's got a family, but his daughter's missing. And all roads lead here to this mental institution. Yeah, and you said she could be in that Neuve house. What about him? What did he do? He's been raising his own, and he's almost filed a police report. But nothing. Benjamin sat and thought about it. He really heard from his friends that in the last couple of years young beauties began to disappear and that it was the doctors or the cops who were involved. But that was talk, and no more evidence. But if the daughter of an authority figure has disappeared and the tracks led here, that's serious. Skull, couldn't it be a banal showdown? It's been speculated. But no, that's not it. Is that why I need your help? How long have you lived near this fine establishment in this town? Take a good look, Skull. By the way, Michael, but the guy who came in the other day with these fools, he works there as an orderly. How does he work? I think he's been there a while. But I asked him. That's what we decided. But in the evening, Benjamin didn't even have to ask the guy. 8 o'clock sharp. He was already sitting in his kitchen and drinking strong and sweet tea, which the owner had brewed, and put in front of the guy. Come on, complain, who has offended? What happened? Yes, you see, I only have a son-in-law here. You know, I finished the basic course in my medical school, and now I'm practicing. But guess what? I know our psychiatric clinic. I've complained before. And I warned you, it's gonna be tough out there. But what happened? And by the way, I have a couple questions for you about your psych ward. Later, though. Now, come on, tell me. So my grandmother and some other people said there was something going on there, but I didn't believe it. But my grandmother pointed out one thing to me. They dress. The young and beautiful in short dresses and stockings and braid their hair. And do you know why? Michael looked at his neighbor, and in his throat stood. He couldn't say it out loud, but he knew he needed help, at least in advice, at least in deed. The old thief sat and looked at the guy, realizing that he not only needed to speak out and ask for advice, but the conversation itself was going in the right direction for him. You see, Uncle Benjamin, they raped them there. Maybe they're even videotaping the whole thing. The guy just gasped at his own words and the realization that Kathy was there and what could be done to her. He took a breath and continued. That's why I came. I've heard about this clinic for a long time, but last night I decided to go and look around. But in short, Uncle Benjamin, I saw 2 cops going down to the basement, as well as our head doctor as an orderly. And they were taking a new girl down there. But apparently the cops had some kind of emergency, and they left quickly. But most importantly, I heard one of them telling our head doctor to leave the girl for later. The guy briefed me on the whole thing and looked at the reaction of the old tramp. On his face was read not only surprise, but also interest, especially the last news. Kathy was the name of the daughter of a street Petersburg authority who was considered missing or even killed, almost by order of the opposing gangs. And what does this girl look like? Tell me. I'm sorry, I'm asking you this for a reason. A friend of mine had a missing daughter. Her name was Kathy, and it all leads back to our town. Maybe it's her. The guy thought about it for a minute and started describing her in detail. But the most important feature the guide remembered was a scar on her left ankle. Then he listened and couldn't believe his ears. He knew the street Petersburg authority Alex and his daughter, and the very scar the girl had gotten, falling from a tree. His heart stabbed. Wow, that's how you find an authority figure's missing daughter. That's lucky. But maybe it's not her at all. Michael, why don't you show her to me? But we'll go tonight, when the patients are out on the street. Show it to me gently. But in terms of what's being done to them, we'll have to get into that basement, look in the nooks and crannies. Can you get the key?" Michael shook his head negatively, but Benjamin just waved his hand. "What can I expect from you?" He went into the room and rummaged through the closet. A set of thieves' lockpicks was there. "Basically, we can look inside this basement at night." "Okay, Michael, when are you going to work?" "Tomorrow." "Well, we'll go together early in the morning. You'll show me from afar the basement, and then if you're psychotic, sorry, patients are walking around, point your finger at Kathy. They don't go out this early. They only let them out at lunchtime and in the evening." "Okay, well, just show me the basement, and then at lunchtime, I'll come to that walk, and you can show me Kathy." "But why?" "Uncle Benjamin, you think she's your friend's daughter. I knew for a fact she was no fool. From your description, it looks like it, but I'll have to see for myself. So, Michael, it would help if you showed her to me. As for proof, I can pick any lock. Just dibs. It's our secret. I'll look, and then, if there's anything interesting, we'll figure out how to proceed." Michael was fine with that, and he calmed down a bit. But then I asked him the same question. "What if there is nothing there that can be caught on?" "Michael, you're like a little child. I know exactly what to look at and what to look for. And then we'll set up a camera and film their antics." The old bastard chuckled, but when he looked at the boy's face, he stopped short. Yeah, I guess he wasn't laughing. Although, if you think about it, it's the height of cynicism to do such a thing as people in white coats and the police cover for them. Yeah, I got a special thing for the police. Plus, if this Kathy brothers thank me very much. Michael, I'm sorry. I guess years in places not so remote haven't made a saint out of me. But I do feel sorry for your charges, especially since some of them were just stabbed with antidepressants and sedatives, and now they're doing this. But that's okay. I'll take a look. We'll set up cameras if we have to. Then I'll report everything to the gang, and they will disperse your gang in no time." Michael listened and understood that the neighbor could do all this. But how to get the whole gang out? Uncle Benjamin. "But understand the proof for your friends is good, but the case must be taken to court." "Michael, do you take me for a fool? Imagine for a minute, if we're looking for my friend's daughter, he'll make such a scandal. He'll involve everyone he can. Lawyers and press, law enforcement, you name it. But most importantly, your head doctor and his cronies won't get away. That's what I need." Michael closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. For some reason, he believed this old jailer, although he realized that Benjamin was not without sin. "All right, Benjamin, let me show you the loophole in the fence at the entrance tomorrow, and then the cellar itself. And you can come to this fine by 12 o'clock. That's when our patients take their lunchtime walks. I'll try to show you Kathy." Benjamin nodded and sipped from a cup of strong tea. He was satisfied with today. Helping Skull and freeing Kathy would be a big plus for him, and he'd been wanting to mess with the cops for a long time, if they were really nasty in that asylum. Michael got up and went home. It was almost 22 o'clock on the clock. It was necessary to wash and sleep. Tomorrow was a crucial and decisive day. In the morning, Benjamin, already 6:45, stood near the entrance and smoked. He put on a dark, unremarkable suit cap and dark glasses. He pulled up a cigarette and thought about the situation with Michael, Kathy, and this almshouse in general. "Uncle Benjamin, hello." Michael greeted his neighbor and extended his hand to him. The man flashed him a cigarette and shook his hand. Quietly, Michael said, "Just call me Benjamin without uncle. I feel like an old man. I'm not young, but I'm not an old man at heart." "All right. You ready to go?" He nodded, and the men walked slowly in the direction of the psychiatric clinic, talking among themselves. Like old friends, Michael walked and looked around so as not to catch the eye of the head doctor or one of the orderlies. There was no need to draw attention to himself. Approaching the fence of the psychiatric clinic, Michael looked around carefully and pointed with his hand to the entrance to the basement. This is the basement, and there's an opening further along the fence into the grounds. Just right for you. Just right. Now let's move on. They went further, passing the very gap in the fence, which was so advantageously disguised by the leaves of wild ivy and vines. Michael looked around again and pointed to the platform. In front of the main entrance, this is our so-called women's quarters, and it's where our patients walk from 12 until lunchtime. If anything I can say from my observation, Kathy often likes to stand under that London tree, which is closer to the road. I've noticed her standing under the tree a couple of times, looking out at the roadway. Kathy nodded his head and lit a cigarette. He went on his way, throwing a few words to the guy. Good, then I'll see you tonight, or rather, tomorrow. Drop by my place in the evening to look at the collections. Michael looked at his neighbor and said nothing. He's weird. But on the other hand, he needs help now. And if the neighbor helps, it will be great. After all, even one life-saving achievement of medicine shift this day went quietly. No incidents, excesses, or patient antics. No nighttime police visits that might have suggested bad thoughts. Except that Kathy was restless this day. Michael watched her from the residence window, and at one point, noticed the girl becoming anxious. She began to wave her head intensely, and her ribbons in her hair fluttered in the wind. Then she turned abruptly and ran away from the fence. Directing his life toward Black Pond, the boy looked carefully at the roadway. Near the curb stood a dark blue, unremarkable car, old, but on the move, strange. Who is it? Michael said it out loud. And then another orderly, Liam, turned around and looked out the window. What kind of car is that? We've got to get to the bottom of this. And he ran out of the office. And in a few seconds, his broad back, the guy saw near the fence. The orderly waved his hands, shouted something in the direction of the driver, but apparently it had no effect. A few minutes later, though, when the chief physician started to approach the car suddenly sped off. That's an interesting situation. What's all the fuss about? It's just a car. You can't even see through the tinted windows. Who's in there? After a couple of minutes, Liam entered the office red as a boiled crawfish and started pacing the room back and forth. Michael at first said nothing, and then asked with the most indifferent tone possible, "And who was it in the car?" "Yes, you see, Michael, one psycho or psychos drive here under the fence and look at our patients. File a police report." The guy deliberately put such a provocative question, looking at the orderly and watching his reaction, but his face reflected nothing but anger and irritability. What's the use of these cops? They only throw up their hands. They say it's none of our business. No corpus delicti and all that. And we have to run around chasing these assholes away. Yeah, there's plenty of crazy people out there. By the way, have you noticed how new this is? Kathy's patient react to that car. No, I didn't see her shaking, and she stood there shaking her head, and then she ran toward Black Pond. Oh, shit. Why didn't you say something? And the orderly rushed out into the street. I wonder why he reacted like that. Michael became curious, and he went to the window. The orderly was standing next to the head doctor, telling him something. Then he pointed toward the pond, and they both went there at a brisk pace. This is interesting, thought the trainee, and quickly ran to the first floor. He went to the artificial pond, which enjoyed a bad reputation already on the shore of the notorious Black Pond. The guy caught a picture on the shore, sat Kathy, and swayed, and near her stood an orderly and the chief physician, and nervously smoked. Guy did not understand what was going on, so he approached the trio and nodding at the girl, asked Noah, "What happened?" "Yeah, you know, Michael. The first day Kathy almost went swimming in the lake, and when Liam said she ran here, I thought she had a craving for water again. So So she'd have wet her feet in waist-deep water. How can I put it, Michael? Our patients are such that they can drown themselves in a spoonful of water. And her reaction to the car, Liam told me about, also surprised me. She never showed any emotion before. Maybe the hypnosis has stopped working, and she is coming to her senses and grieving. You've probably been skipping classes on the subject of hypnosis, and it's the kind of thing that doesn't weaken over time. It's not sleeping pills or tranquilizers, is it? I guess, Noah, I guess. Both Michael and the doctor in charge stood by the lake for a few minutes, watching as the orderly took Kathy to the women's ward. I wonder what's going to happen to her and why she reacted the way she did to the car parked near the fence. Is there something to that? I'll have to tell my neighbor about it. Maybe he knows something, but the neighbor was the one in that car. Benjamin kicked his old broad out of the garage and thought it would be more convenient to watch the loony bin on wheels. It was at 1:30 that he drove the car up to the place where the loonies were strolling, and oh joy, near this fence stood Kathy. It was the daughter of the St. Petersburg authority figure. There was no doubt about it. Yes, he had seen her about 15 years ago. She had grown up and become a beautiful girl, but her eyes were still the same, just like when he'd seen her at her birthday party when she was 7. I wonder if the scar is still there. I should ask Michael to look at the scar on her leg. That's the only way to tell. I parked Benjamin's car with the window down and looked at the girl carefully. They must have drugged the poor girl with some pills. She's as good as dead. Eyes blank, all dressed up in some stupid costume. Yeah, I guess the guy's right about it all looking like something. The man rolled down the passenger side window more and called out to the girl, "Kathy, listen to me. Don't be afraid. I'm Uncle Benjamin. Do you remember me?" The girl stood there for a minute, paying no attention to the car and the driver. Then she turned her head and looked at him. At that moment, Benjamin waved his hand and smiled. But a meaningful thought suddenly flashed on the girl's face, and she began to shake her head, and then screamed and rushed running towards the park. Shit. Benjamin didn't expect such a reaction, and so quickly, closing the window, rushed out of the place in the direction of the city. I don't want to be seen here, otherwise they'll dump the office. Benjamin drove around the city for half an hour, and coming back, he could not resist and drove slowly along the fence of the psychiatric clinic. But there was no one in the yard. It must be lunchtime, the man said to himself, and decided to have a snack. He turned the steering wheel and headed for the nearest cafe to drink strong flavored coffee and eat a sweet mug. He had long favored this cafe with its own pastry shop. It served the strongest coffee and delicious pastries, just like when he was a kid. Yes, the man thought, when my grandson comes to visit me, I'll definitely bring him here with his father to drink coffee and eat more delicious food. But emotions came over Benjamin at the mention of his grandson, and a traitorous terror returned to his eye. "You're not well." The waitress came up to the man and handed him a menu. No, the girl just remembered his grandson, who lives abroad with his father, and thought that it would be nice to bring him here. It's just a bit of a rush, so to speak. I understand. Coffee and a mug for you as always. Although, you know, I'd advise you that our pastry chef has never tasted better. Let's have your labor. We should try it. Because girlfriends. The man drank coffee and smiled at the rays of sunshine that penetrated the cafe, fell on his table and hands. It was so good to just sit there and think about nothing and enjoy every minute. But he had to go home and think about how to plan his evening, or rather, his night out at the clinic. Benjamin paid for his coffee and, leaving the waitress a generous tip, drove home. Already at home, he slept, touched up, under the shower, and after making himself a strong tea, sat down in the kitchen. Coffee is good, but strong and sweet tea helped him to think. Probably habits from places not so distant were making themselves known, but he had long ago stopped paying attention to the fact that he was sitting down, and what people would think of it. And now he was helping a friend whose daughter had disappeared under very strange circumstances. A traitorous terror came to Benjamin's eye again. He remembered his daughter, beautiful and clever, who had gone to the Emirates and found her happiness there. How she was happy about her new job. And her husband, who, to his credit, loved her very much. Pregnancy and rejoiced. But, so Benjamin and Nikita do not need to wipe the snot and pull Kathy. And the man began to pack a backpack, a flashlight, and an old lockpick set for a night out. Machine oil, so the lock wouldn't stick, if anything. Now, having lost one daughter, he wanted to help his friend Kathy's daughter get out of the asylum. The man had long thought about why she had been kidnapped a year ago from her father's home, and many people had written it all off as a thievery. But that's not the case here. Alex is a competent and clever man. He's handled the most heated disputes, so sworn enemies parted as friends and best partners. And here, who would take revenge? No, the man shook his head. It's something else, he thought to himself, not what others think. Why did he think that? He didn't know. But if the girl he'd seen today was Kathy and was his friend's daughter, Benjamin realized what the reason might be. The girl had an unearthly beauty, her figure, long blonde hair, blue eyes, and she had the same mind as her father. And if he was right, then she was probably kidnapped by visiting tourists who were in the business of kidnapping and shooting racy movies. Maybe that's what happened. But the man was simply afraid to think what Kathy might have done. After all, even among the right criminal authorities, violence is a forbidden topic. A woman must be loved. She must be persuaded. You have to placate her with gifts and kisses, but you can't rape her. All the more to shoot nasty things against her will. It's one thing for a woman to do it for money. It's another to rape her. Well, it's gonna be all right now. Be patient, Kathy. Throwing his backpack over his shoulders, Benjamin went out into the street and headed towards the psychiatric clinic. It was already dark, and there were no stars in the sky. What pleased the old thief? He quietly approached the fence and skulked away, but with a ducking motion. He stopped imperiously under a tree and looked around. There was no one. There was silence. It was ringing dark. Only, in the windows of the first-floor patients' rooms, there was a dim light burning. That's good. That means I won't need a flashlight. This light will suffice. And the man rushed to the cellar, quickly oiled the lock, and opened it professionally. Benjamin did not hang it in place, leaving the door covered, but not tightly, so that in case of need he could quickly run out. The hinges should be oiled as well. It wouldn't be good if the door suddenly peeked open quickly. Coping with the hinges, the man began to listen to the sounds in the basement and slowly walked forward. The hallway was quiet. On the left side were storerooms, some closed, others without doors. That's fine, the old thief thought. There will be a place to hide in case of trouble. Strange, where these subhumans had found a porn studio. But at the very end, Benjamin saw a massive door, so stuffed with felt. Yeah, there you are, and soundproofed at the very end, so no one could hear the girls screaming, the bastards. He went to the door and listened. But what kind of work had been done there? But what kind of barrier was there? There was no door that could not be opened by an old thief who had gone through a fine school. Indeed, the locks were also hidden under a layer of felt. Good point. No sound will get through the gaps. Well, that's clever, but I'll get you open. The man lifted the layer of felt carefully and listened. Quiet, which means no one. That's good, which means we can work. And Benjamin carefully began to pick the lock. Yes, it's a fancy lock, but for a craftsman like me, it shouldn't be too hard to pick. And after a couple minutes, the man opened the door to the secret studio. Wow, that's quite a spread. The furnishings, state-of-the-art, technology, and newfangled digital equipment, all put to great use. No wonder with the police running it all. And apparently, they're making a lot of money. Yeah, I guess crazy movies are popular with crazy people. But that man heard how heavy doors, covered with his lacquer, began to open, and without thinking, Benjamin jumped under the bed. That's quite a situation. At least the bed was wide, and it was covered with a long sheet all the way to the floor. Shit, thought the thief. What a fool not to listen to what was going on outside the door. So I got him. The main thing is not to suspect anything and not to search the place. But apparently the unexpected guests didn't suspect a thing. Oh, look, Noah's already opened the door. Didn't have to fiddle with the lock. Yeah, Stas. It's a nice studio. There's plenty of room for fun. And the man sat down on the bed and took pictures, and he laughed. Apparently, it was the cops Michael was talking about, who had been let in by the head doctor. So Benjamin quietly exhaled and listened further. Yes, boss. What are we going to do here? Are we going to film racy scenes? No, just participate. We got some local girls from the head doctor. So we'll try new things, boss will. It's not very exciting, but it's mental. I don't know what's on her mind. Would she bite or stab at the peak of pleasure? No. Yeah, well, it's a valid concern, Benjamin thought. But if you had a knife, you'd be so heavy. You'd be falling out of bed. You must be 150 pounds. And all that on a young girl. Ugh, that's disgusting. But what to do? So far, luck was not on his side. But then another man came into the room and said, "Sorry, Mr. Mikhailovich, I can't make it today. Apparently, it's either the moon or the stars. But our girls are on a rampage. Aha." Apparently, the head doctor tearfully apologizes for his wards. But apparently, the police brass didn't like the news. And he's not happy. Noah, why is that? Or does the hospital no longer have the appropriate injections? We've injected a couple of times, and the girl sleeps well. Yeah, we've already injected them, but it's still wrong. I'm sorry. Come back in a couple days and I'll put them on hard shots. Then they'll be as smooth as silk. All right. The cop said grudgingly and got out of bed, walked towards the exit. But next time, there should be 2 or even 3 girls. The doctor answered nothing, but only closed the door behind his guests, locking it shut. After a few minutes, the thief crawled out from under the bed and began to look around. He decided not to rush out of the room, but to put his video camera here. He definitely needed proof of what was going on here. Kathy then. He can quietly get out of the room, but this office needs to be covered up, and he knows to whom he will send the received materials. To his daughter Alex. I'm sure he'd tear anyone's throat out. Quietly, looking around, only stopped her gaze on the partners who were closing the improvised window. So over there at the very top you can install a camera. Yeah, it was a good thing he had his introductions. And not too long ago, he'd been fitted with a mini camera that ran on batteries and turned on the recording at any movement. So, sweetie, put it up and film it here. And the other day I'll come and check what you've prepared for me and make sure the camera is in working order. Benjamin copied carefully his video, point, and check everything behind him and quietly left the room. He locked the door and quietly walked out of the basement. There was no one near the entrance, but still God protects him, said the nun. The thief said quietly and began to walk along the walls to the cherished fence. Going out into the street, he took and walked along the road, pretending to stroll in the picturesque cat, taking in his hands a pre-prepared bottle of beer. And even if he was stopped by the police, they would not be able to attribute anything but an administrative offense to him, although it's not like breaking into a mental institution. But I'll get over it. And with a quiet step, he went in the direction of his house, got to the house. Benjamin quickly for about 10 minutes and already in his apartment, having thrown off his clothes and stood under the shower, He exhaled with relief. Yes, I have not seen such a case since the dashing 90s. But the good thing is now there will be evidence and grounds to visit you, gentlemen in white coats on legal grounds, and smash your balaganda with all the proletarian hatred. We've had a night's experience, and the smell of a psychiatric clinic. Old Kogan went to the kitchen and made himself some tea. He had to think calmly about what he had seen and how to present it to his street Petersburg friend. The fact that they were making strawberries there, the man realized. And in principle, the camera will definitely record all the abominations. It's a matter of technique and time. But what about the girl who looked a lot like Kathy? You'll have to leave that to Michael. He works there, albeit as an orderly, but it would be easier for him to examine her under any pretext. Now, we just have to wait for the morning and for what Michael and I will bring. Benjamin turned off the light and left the cup on the table and went to bed. After all, the coming day also promised a lot of things to do and new information. It was necessary to have a fresh head to think everything over and make the right decision. Already, closer to 10 o'clock to the old thief at the door rang. Probably Michael, and he was not mistaken. Uncle Benjamin, I came straight from work to see you. May I come in? I've been waiting for you. I just got up and made breakfast. Give me my hands and sit down at the table. I don't feel like eating right now. Uncle Benjamin, do you have a lump in your throat? Our lunatics almost went crazy today. I don't know what happened, but they all went crazy. Some howled, others sang songs, and the women's ward all threw off their clothes. It was a restless night, I know. Michael looked at his neighbor perplexed, but did not ask anything. He sat down at the table and looked at the plate of scrambled eggs Benjamin had placed in front of him. I stopped by her lovely basement today and got into the spicy studio. And by the way, while I was there were visitors, most likely. Your Noah, the head doctor, and the police. But don't worry, nothing happened. First came the cops, then came your doctor and said that the patients are raging. So everything was quickly turned off. But it's not worth the wait. He promised them strawberries in a couple days. But I left the video camera there for now. I'll pick it up in a couple days. We'll see what's on it. And then we'll figure out where to go and who to show it to. By the way, did you check to see if this new Kathy patient of yours has a cross-shaped scar? Yeah, the night before everyone else, I was working on her, and I got a good look at it. It's a small one just below the kneecap. Benjamin nodded and smiled. So it really is Kathy. She had been found. There was no doubt now. That was good. I'd have to get proof of the luxury, the doctors, and the police. Then we could celebrate. Victory. It's her, said Benjamin, eating scrambled eggs. There's no doubt now. But we have to wait a while. Let the camera capture everything. And then trust me, I know who to show the material to. And it won't go away. Uncle Benjamin, I realize you're a lawman, but it's one thing to have a criminal altercation and another. This needs to go to court. That's right. Sweet man. What did you think? Gangbangers in black cars are gonna come in and shoot everybody, and that's it. No, we're just gonna show them all up. And then there's the lawyers, the courts, and of course, the media. Don't worry about that. Just keep your ear to the ground at your job and try to make sure that nothing happens to Kathy during these days. By the way, who's giving her the sedation shots? Yeah, there's this Liam. Orderly, big guy with huge fists. Why? Try to make sure you get the job. You make sure you don't give the girl the shots. She has to come off the drugs and be, so to speak, sober and clear-headed when it all comes to a head. But even if things don't work out, just keep an eye on her. Michael nodded his head and smiled, acknowledging the breakfast. He himself hadn't noticed how hungry he'd gotten in 24 hours and practically gobbled up everything he'd prepared in one fell swoop. Yes, he had a good appetite. The landlord looked at the young orderly and smiled. The man brewed tea and took out his favorite girlfriends. "Let's drink tea. And listen to me carefully for now." Michael nodded his head, began to listen to the old thief. He told him that Kathy, supposedly the daughter of one of the street Petersburg authorities, it was time to close the studio, and his help would be very helpful. And she wasn't mentally ill, more like a kidnapping victim. Half an hour later, the guy was on his way home. "Uncle Benjamin's gonna go, or my mother and grandmother will be worried. And you call me if you need anything. And where will you find out?" "Okay, while we wait. If there's anything new, I'll drop by Grandma's. Thanks for the goodies. She's always spoiling the old man." "What are you, an old man? You'll give the young ones a head start, won't you?" And shaking hands, the neighbors parted. Michael opened the door and from the doorstep heard the smell of his grandmother's famous PR. She at his place always cooked her signature delicious and grandmother's pie. Smells like from the doorstep. "Why'd you stay late at work?" "Oh no, I stopped by my neighbor Benjamin's, but there to talk, and I was going to talk to the old fella about something." "Mom, don't coach. No one's safe from jail or prison. We all could be, just like in my almshouse, by the way." And the guy threw his backpack on the hall table and went to the bathroom to wash his hands. When he came out, he went into the kitchen, where breakfast was already on the table. "Mom, I don't want any. I ate at work, but tea and cake would be great." Michael didn't tell her that he'd had breakfast at the old thugs. He didn't want to make his mother nervous. The woman looked at him carefully, but didn't say anything. Only the grandmother, apparently, guessed where her grandson had eaten, but shook her head, said nothing. "Grandson, but I just put the pie on. We'll be ready only in half an hour. In the meantime, bear with me." "All right, I'll help Siberia in the meantime." One boy nodded his head and gave his grandmother a peck on the cheek and went back to his room. Michael spent these days at home, waiting for information from Benjamin, but he was silent. They crossed paths in the yard a couple of times, but the neighbor only said hello and didn't say anything. And the guy didn't really insist. He understood that if he didn't say anything, it was the right thing to do. But on Sunday, Benjamin decided to check the familiar basement and take the camera. He didn't tell his neighbor about his plans. He decided to take the tape first, see what he had, and then act according to the situation. Late at night, Benjamin, as he did the first time, went to the cellar door and looked around. Everything was quiet, but the silence was deceptive. Come on, he had to go get the camera anyway, and he slipped downstairs, opened the greased door, and froze on the threshold. The man listened carefully to the sounds, but the silence was sepulchral. With quiet shuffling steps, Benjamin approached the very last door, orbited it, and varnished it and lifted it. At the keyhole, he listened carefully. Quiet. So the studio is not working for its intended purpose today. That's fine, no one will interfere. Quickly removing the camera, Benjamin headed for the exit, and just as quickly went out and closed the door as he came in. But as he passed the women's quarters, the man didn't hold back. He walked over to one of the dimly lit windows and peered through it at a bed and a dark-haired woman sitting on it. A woman dressed in a short dress with ribbons in her hair. Yes, thought the man. Another victim. How did I get the camera in time? He mentally pitied her because he knew what would happen next. But on the other hand, what could he do now? Nothing. Once outside, Benjamin walked home as before, pondering what he would see on the tape at home. He inserted the flash drive into the TV. The man began to watch the video, and what he saw there only confirmed his suspicions. And the worst and most disgusting, he angrily turned off the TV after a few minutes of watching, threw the remote on the couch, and went out onto the balcony. Yeah, that was to be expected. Okay, now we can show Alex all of this. and then let him think how to deal with these creatures and tell Kathy about it. Benjamin smoked a long time to calm down, and understandably so, seeing all that filth. Although he is a thief and experienced, has seen a lot in his life, but such a man has always respected women. But how do they even do it? They're sick women. It's unthinkable, and he couldn't find an answer. What's there to say? Mental illness must have its own degree of variance, or maybe it's congenital. Who knows? Benjamin threw the cigarette butt down and went to bed. What was it, though? Even after a couple of minutes of watching, he was shivering. But apparently, fatigue and emotion took over, and the man fell into a deep but restless sleep. Already, in the morning, Benjamin was on duty on the balcony to look for Michael, who had to return from work. And when he appeared at the entrance, he called him and gestured for him to come up to him. "Uncle Benjamin, anything new?" "Yes, not on our honor. Remember I told you I put a camera in the basement?" Benjamin nodded and beckoned him into the hall, turned on the video, and let him watch. It was filmed by Michael. The orderly was horrified to see the head doctor and his cronies having fun with sick women at night. He certainly did not expect such a thing. The boy closed his eyes and quietly said, "Turn it all off." Benjamin did not argue. It was really disgusting. He sat there and didn't know how to go on living with it. Opening his eyes, he looked at the landlord and asked if he had anything to drink. He nodded his head and took out a bottle of vodka from the bar. He hadn't been drinking for a long time, but he always had alcohol just in case, and now he put a glass of white vodka on his neighbor's face. He held it out and said, "Wait, I'll bring snacks." But Michael did not wait for an appetizer, but drank the vodka in one fell swoop and sniffed it with his sleeve. At that minute, the host entered the room with a slice of sausage and cheese, but the guy nodded his head negatively and said, "I can have some more vodka, but at least you're behind the ring." Benjamin poured, sat down next to him. Michael drank this glass in one breath, and now he took a snack and looked at the old thief attentively, talking about what we'll do, what we won't do, and what you'll do. "I already thought to show to whom it is necessary to give a report to their own, and they're already, I will wait, what they will tell me. But I think it won't take long to get a reaction. I also asked you here on purpose. I want to warn you that there may be some serious inspections at your clinic in the near future. I'm aware of that. I hope everything's legal and these assholes don't get away with it. Don't worry, they won't. You tell me, how's Kathy? How can I tell you? I got the head doctor to let me give her shots, you know, just for show. But you know I didn't. But then, you see, Uncle Benjamin, she came into the clinic sort of hypnotized. So, she probably doesn't realize where she is. Or maybe it's like, she's in there. And is she really mentally damaged? I hope not. Although we can't rule out that possibility. But now, the main thing is to get her out of there. And then other specialists will deal with her." And Michael nodded his head. He was sober as a glass even after 2 glasses of alcohol. Apparently, the nervous shock did not let the alcohol to work. The guy sat on his neighbor's couch for a while longer, silently leaned back, then looked at the man and said, "I'm going home. I need to be good. Just Michael, I'm begging you, don't do anything on your own right now. Do you realize how dangerous this is? That's one thing. And secondly, you can't do anything on your own. You'll only make things worse for yourself and Kathy and the other patients." The boy nodded his head. He realized he was right. And it was stupid and dangerous to take any action now. All he could do was wait. But he didn't wait long. The very next day, he was summoned to work. "Michael, good morning. Is no bothering you? You've been summoned to work immediately." The head doctor's voice was frightened and trembling. "Good morning. What's wrong?" the guy asked. It was just for show. Did he realize what might be going on in his clinic? Nothing yet. Come on over." And the head doctor hung up. Yeah, that's how you guys got moving. Apparently, the neighbor got the materials to the right place. And now the guy quickly got dressed and started to leave the apartment when he was stopped on the doorstep by his grandmother. Michael, what are you doing up so early? The chief of medicine called. I have to go to work for my shift. So you didn't even bring any food? No, I didn't have a shift. There's something going on, and it's probably an emergency. Okay, then he slammed the door, and 5 minutes later he was at work. And what he saw made the guy very happy. A whole brigade of enforcers were crowding around the main entrance. Orderlies and doctors nervously stood and smoked in the distance, and patients were carefully taken out and put into ambulances. Michael approached the orderly Liam and asked Liam, "What is going on?" "Don't you see OMON? We're raiding and cleaning up, and that someone is selling drugs. Go higher. Someone organized a porn studio in our basement, and they blamed it on our head doctor and a few of his henchmen. That's what it's all about." Michael made a surprised face, but at that very moment he saw Kathy being taken out of the women's building by two men and carefully put into a black Jeep. So she really was the daughter of a reputable thief. But thank God she wasn't mentally ill. He looked at her and was startled by the hand on his shoulder. "It was you, Michael." The voice was commanding and quiet at the same time. He turned around and saw a man dressed in an expensive suit. He immediately realized that he was either one of the highest representatives of the government or a criminal authority. Michael nodded his head and only wanted to ask, "Who are you?" But the man was ahead of him. "I'm Alexander, Kathy's father. Benjamin, your neighbor, told me everything about you, about your help. So thank you for bringing my daughter back. You're welcome. I know it doesn't have to be this way. It's mean and wrong. Kathy's gonna be okay." The man nodded his head and looked at the boy carefully. But he didn't say anything. And what could he say if he didn't know anything about his child's condition? But God willing, everything would be fine. He just nodded his head once more, thanked him quietly, and turned around and walked to his car, which immediately sped away. As soon as he closed the door, Michael stared after him for a few minutes, reflecting on the situation, and at that moment the chief doctor and his associates were being loaded into the truck. It was all over. Michael did not notice how his neighbor Benjamin quietly approached him and clapped him on the shoulder. Now all the members of the Corps de Ballet have been captured and sent to places not so remote. Believe me, my contacts will make sure of that. And Kathy, it was her dad, but in a black BMW. Yeah, I think she'll be fine. And you, neighbor, thanks for pulling her and the other women out of that bondage. Michael raised an eyebrow, perplexed, not really understanding what the neighbor was saying, but he immediately clarified. You see, Kathy isn't the only healthy woman in this almshouse. Many beauties were just grabbed on the street and brought here under the guise of one or another mental disorder. And what was done to them next? You know what I mean. Now the shop's been shut down. And a special big thank you from my friends. The neighbor patted him on the shoulder and went home. And Michael stood on the street and smoked for a long time, realizing that there could be a great number of such clinics all over the country. After all, there will always be people like his chief physician, the chief of police, prone to such entertainments. But now, Michael realized that there was one less clinic of debauchery, and it was his direct merit. He walked home and thought about how a person's fate can turn out. Even take Noah, the head doctor, a respected man, and an excellent specialist. But something drove him to such a crime. Kathy is the daughter of a wealthy father, albeit with a criminal record, intelligent and beautiful. She had suffered at the hands of non-humans who could simply stab her with drugs to the point of being a vegetable. But that's all in the past now, and his town can breathe easy. Oh, Michael, you got home from work so fast, lady. How's Grandma's pie cooking? The grandmother looked at her grandson and realized Everything on his face. She smiled and put her specialty pie on the table, pouring her grandson some tea-flavored tea. The woman knew that now everything would be fine in this town, and certainly no one else would get hurt. And all of this was due to her grandson. She was proud of him, as any grandmother would be. After all, it is probably right to say that one loves one's grandchildren more than one loves one's own children. Betty smiled, and after patting him on the head, sat down on a chair and carefully washed her specialty pie with doctors like him flying in both cheeks. One could be calm for every patient, for everyone. Behind this psychiatric clinic in the city, and in general in the region, have long been bad rumors, like what happens in horror movies, and Michael had certainly heard about it. And when his mother and grandmother found out that he is an excellent student, and a graduate of medical school goes there to work as an orderly, one of them waved his hands. "Grandson, you're the only man left in the family. Don't go there. Michael, you know I'm from an ancient noble family. I may not have 1 million, but I'll find the money to pay for your internship abroad." "Grandma, what money? What abroad? I have to make my own way, just like my grandfather." And the boy nodded his head at the portrait of his grandfather hanging on the wall. And indeed, Michael had someone to look up to. His grandfather was a famous surgeon, and his father, who died in Afghanistan, blew himself up on a mine, saving the military. And so he decided to become a doctor, but not a surgeon like his grandfather and father, but a psychiatrist. Why psychiatry? My mother joked in the first year of school, "But Mom, if the body my grandfather and father studied, so to speak, in detail, then psychiatry is a real field for research, a Klondike." "Yes, you're a researcher. I hope. Psychiatry isn't contagious." "Oh, Mom, don't worry. It's not like it's the flu or anything. Maybe I can find my own unique method of therapy for mentally ill patients. Yeah, and bring people like Chikatilo back into society." "So Adriana, please don't bring it up," said the grandmother, stepping in for her grandson. The case of this serial maniac was then on the rumor, and the whole country was following him. But the mother reacted too painfully to her. Michael understood her because her own sister Adriana, and his own aunt, the only close person, killed by an unknown assailant, and the culprit was never found. The investigator then said that it could be a maniac, but now in many women saw negative elements of society, especially if they stayed in such institutions as their own city institution for the mentally ill. "Mom, you are an adult, and you understand that it is better to treat such people, recognize them as sane, and then pass a sentence, than to spend money on them to keep them in such houses as ours for years. And you're still defending him." The mother was outraged, but she knew her son's temper. "Michael, you're just like your father, just as stubborn. All right, but don't complain to me about anything. Adriana, don't worry. My grandson will complain to his legal grandmother." "You mean me?" Betty gently ruffled the thick red curls of his favorite grandson. "Grandma, but I'm not a boy anymore. Not a boy, but not yet a husband. So listen to your mother, but also to me sometimes." So they lived in the old Tsar's house, where they had a 5-room apartment with its own fireplace and a large library, luxurious balconies, which still kept traces of the old stucco. This house was in the very center of the city, stood on a small hill, and was considered one of the elite in the city. For it, even many rich men and millionaires, even one criminal authority, gave crazy money for the family to sell their apartment. "No way," said Betty's grandmother, who was considered the head of the family, and whose word was final. "This apartment will serve my great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. So just stop asking me stupid questions like if I want to sell the apartment and leave me alone." That's all she said a few years ago to a city criminal mastermind. And strangely enough, but after that they really didn't bother them anymore. They didn't even start organizing invasion raids, as it often happened in those times. That's how they lived. "Michael, dreaming of becoming a famous psychiatrist, and his mother and grandmother, whom he madly loved and idolized. No, there were girls in his life, and even an older woman, but he loved few.